There it is. What up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Granny's Peach Tea, episode 152. And it is finally X-Men 97 week, everybody. Super excited. We didn't even think that this was coming this week, but we made some little behind-the-scenes changes and decided, what's up? We're going to go ahead and get to it. So, dude, it would have been tough. It would have been tough to know it was out there and not have watched it and not have talked about it.
We had to do it. We had to do it.
So we decided, hey, let's just jump into it and let's get to it. So, thanks for joining us on this Friday evening. Friday shows have been known to get a little wacky around here. Some of our wackier
dancing
stuff has
before.
happened. There's a lot of dancing on Fridays.
Night.
You just don't know when. You could be like Jubilee in a club and have fireworks going off while you're dancing. I mean,
that was awesome, by the way. That was awesome.
That was pretty awesome. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, if you're joining us on YouTube or X or wherever you found your audio-only podcast, we appreciate the support as always. I am Ed, and with me as always is Jason. Jason, what is up, man? Are you X-Men'd out or something? Like, what's up, man? Tell me what's going on.
This is craziness, man. I'm so entrenched in the X-Men. And it's not a bad thing, but I'm so entrenched. I'll tell you guys a little behind the scenes, right? So Rick texted us before that he might come on tonight. He's like, yeah, I'm only like halfway through season 4. And I text back, yeah, no, dude, we're still in season 3. You're fine. And Ed is like, no, we are absolutely in season 4, man. And I was like, holy shit, I'm lost in the X-Men. It's X-Men ever. And I watched all of season 4, but I'm just like, I've lost track. There's so much X-Men, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff, good things all around. I've been using my mutant powers in the classroom because I had parent-teacher conference today, calling a lot of people. That's my mutant power. My mutant power is to like really pull off parent-teacher conference very well.
That's a pretty powerful one, I gotta say. I could only begin to imagine, but that has to take a lot to be able to pull that magic act off, I gotta say.
It's exhausting. It's different now. Like now, since the pandemic, they have us do it at home, which I love. And like we have 5-minute windows to call parents. And so, I'm really good at that. I work customer service. I work retail. I didn't go right into teaching after college. But when I used to be in person, it used to be crazy because I have no idea who I was seeing. When people would just walk in. That's how it was when we were kids, right? Mm-hmm. People would walk in, and I would literally use my customer service experience because they'd walk in, I'd size them up. Okay, are they going to yell at me? All right, no, probably not. They look like they're in a good mood. Their kid's probably doing well. Like that's, which is a customer service thing. If anyone worked customer service, I worked Home Depot for a long time. I used to walk around like, ooh, that guy's going to yell at me. I have to really like toughen up and also not lose my shit, But yeah, funny story. It's like the transferable skills of my Home Depot job and customer service literally works in any job.
Yeah, I attribute some of my stuff from my retail days for my current job as a facilities manager, right? Like I always describe it as, hey, I'm still helping people, just where there's no exchange of money this time.
Right, exactly. And you still have to know how to talk to people, and
you do learn some stuff.
You do. I always say this, and so now I'm on a teaching tangent, but this is Friday night. This is, and again, teaching is also my mutant power. Mm-hmm. I actually attribute the fact that I am a good teacher to my customer service experience in the Home Depot directly, because I worked with people who I hated and who infuriated me. I worked with them. I worked for them. They were the customers. Like I was a rage monster in my 20s. And now that I work for the DOE, I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Hey, that's all right. Could be worse,
Just think back for a second and you're like, oh, okay, no, it's not so bad.
Exactly. It's like, and the kids, yeah, they can get in your face, and much like the customers, you have to give them what they want eventually in some form. But um, you know, I'm able to go zen because I work retail.
Yeah. You also learned the big thing of how to tell somebody no without actually telling them no.
That oh yeah, that's exactly it. Or had to be fair but firm. I once told a customer who came up yelling at me the second I clocked in a
Mm-hmm.
department I didn't work, and he started yelling at me. I've been waiting for you for 20 minutes. I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. You weren't waiting for me. I just clocked in. You're gonna take a second. You can take a breath, and then when you're gonna not yelling at me, I'm gonna help you out, starting now. And what's he gonna do? I mean, I didn't tell him I was gonna help him. I just told him he couldn't yell at me. I do that shit with students all the time.
The valuable lessons of the retail world.
Yep.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff to get to. We're going to be discussing the Invincible season 2, episodes 5 and 6 that are right now on Amazon Prime Video. We still got season 4 of X-Men the animated series to get to because that is the longest one, and it was a lot. So
yeah,
we got a lot to cover there, and then of course X-Men 97 episodes 1 and 2 that are the main event of this week and have been pretty much the talk of our little comic book universe here since it dropped on Wednesday. So quick couple of comments though before we get rolling. My boy TJ over here, what's up, dude? What's going on? Actually, I saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire with TJ just a couple of hours ago. So thanks for joining us, dude. And yes, we do some dancing here on Friday nights on occasion, some chair dancing. You never know what could happen. Friday shows not planned seem to go in crazy directions. So we'll see where the heck it goes. I mean, stay tuned and see what happens. All right, so let's get to it then. We got Invincible is back for the second half of season 2. They split it up. Just came back a week ago, so we're going to get to that. Let me drop down that spoiler warning just for anyone. We are going to be talking spoilers free for it because episode 6 just dropped yesterday. So if you haven't watched Invincible and you're waiting to, you got two options. You've been warned. You can either come back and check us out at a later time or just shut us off or just deal with it, whatever you want to do with that. So Jason, what's up? What's going on in the world of our buddy Mark Rayson over there?
Yeah, these were some good episodes, I got to admit. So we come back and Mark is pretty much helping the bug planet that his father was living on rebuild. It's made very clear that they're telling him that he needs to go home and he doesn't want to. If you guys remember, anyone remembers the Viltriums pretty much told Mark, now you prep your planet, we're coming for it. So he doesn't really want to go back. The bug mother, who's the Empress, who's now like, it's been 2 months and she's already on death's door because their species goes so quickly. She's like, you got to take your brother. I mean, that's it. Like, because if you don't, generations of our kind will go past before he's even speaking a sentence. It's abandonment. So I thought it was a really nice moment, for this in this weird cartoon alien world. And then so Mark goes back, tries to reacclimate into his life. It's weird. It's hard. He now has this kid. And that's pretty much Mark's journey for this, right? Like him trying to get back. Because we don't get Seth Green, because I watched these two back to back, so they're in both of my head. We don't get Seth Rogen rather until the second episode, right?
We get Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen's Alan the Alien. He's in that. I also was thinking about this, right? What are your thoughts on the way that Invincible handles mid-credit scenes? I feel like it's like a built-in thing that happens like 5 or 10 seconds later after the episode ends, and then they kind of go into it. It's a little weird, no? Like it seems like it's weird. Too soon.
I'd rather it just not have any time. Just be the last scene.
Yeah, it seems like it's almost like a forced mid-credit
scene,
but not like, really mid-credit.
It's like, oh, this is what they do in the movies. Let's do it. It's like, yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel organic.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. But no, that's when we find out in episode 5 is mid credit scene that Alan Alien is actually alive, and he is got a new body. He's like jacked all of a sudden, and he's huge, and that's kind of how he's reborn into that. Um, I do think that with episode 5 though, well, as far as Mark's journey, but the other things that go on in episode 5, the thing would duplicate in that whole.
Oh,
yeah.
This is no. I was getting through the
no.
Mark stuff before I moved on to the other stuff.
Yeah. So Mark's journey, yeah, I would agree with you. In episode 5, Mark's journey is pretty much getting sent to return to Earth, and also the whole complications with his brother, right? With Oliver Grayson, is that what this child represents, right? Like Mark
Right.
is just dealing with the fact that A, his father is alive, B, like trying to like he's obviously has feelings and anger towards his father because he did what he did with his mother, and now he has a child, and now it's like, oh yeah, Mark, take your baby brother now, and now you have to like raise him on your home planet, and there's a lot to deal with there.
No, there is, and there's an awesome moment where he's talking to his mother about what to do. And again, this is like when comic books work really well, and it's great that we're talking about this episode while we're talking about X-Men, because it's the same thing. It's when it's an allegory for real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Mark brings home this baby and is trying to convince his mother, like, look, we got to help him. I mean, what are we going to do? This is my brother. And it's like, yeah, that's his brother. And Omni-Man, as he admits later, regardless of what he did, that's his father. And he has this moment of, well, I'll just quit school. It's like, I don't, and she's like, no. And he's like, I don't want to, but I mean, someone's got to, we have to make this work. This is important. And it really struck me as a moment of, kids who were raised by abusive parents or an abusive parent or with domestic violence, which clearly that is, what's going on at the end of season 1. Having to grow up too soon, having to take control of the siblings, having to take control of the house. Sometimes you have to, even the smartest and most capable of kids have to drop out of high school or college or whatever to take care of the family. And this really, I thought this moment really kind of elevated the show for me, because I'm like, wow, this is doing social commentary now. And I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess it's more in episode 6 where you also get to see Mark's mother having to deal with the whole aspect of the baby, because that's who is going to help him, raise the child while Mark is off being invincible and trying to go to college. And there's a whole lot to unpack with that, because as he keeps disappearing, like, with all superhero stars essentially that have secret identities, like there's repercussions to their personal life. And
right,
with his girlfriend, with his school, with him, like you mentioned, he was talking about potentially dropping out of school for a year because he figured his grades were going to suck anyway, and you can kind of like restart next year. And it's a lot. And this animated show, because some people will look down a little bit on the animated shows. This show does a lot of heavy lifting, like X-Men does. A lot of real life shit that goes down here.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
and also the thing, because we'll just do the journey. Let's just, instead of going episode to episode, we'll just do the characters.
Yeah, that's
like
fine.
We do. So then Mark, in that 6th episode, Mark's mother then kind of makes a decision that she's going to raise this kid, and it's explored even in the episode with her and Cecil, like, this is your ex-husband's kid. This is your murderously abusive ex-husband's kid. You shouldn't have to raise him. And she's like, no, this is Mark's brother. He needs this. We need this. And you find out later, like, she's pre-chewing this kid's food because the kid is, again, part Viltrumite and part whatever bug creatures those are called. I forget what they're called. And he can't actually chew his own food. So again, it's this very interesting thing about, like, well, the ex-wife takes over the stepdaughter or the stepson while the abusive husband's in prison, which is pretty much where Omni-Man is. He's in a Viltrumite prison being tortured, interrogated, reprogrammed, a little bit of all three.
Well, they're supposedly gonna like execute him. That's what they're. And again, because remember, Alan the alien does speak to him and says, "Hey, you know, whether your father's executed right now or not, or he's going to, or whatever, like they don't know where the hell he is, and they're trying to track him down, and they're under the belief. Mark thinks, yeah, his dad's dead or going to die, or you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, but we do see,
we know,
yeah, we know that like they are planning something. Like he's still alive, which I think that was really nice. Like they set that up very well just at the end. Like, oh, what the fuck's going on here? And I don't even think he speaks, right?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, which I think was even better because it was just like, wow, this is hardcore.
Yeah, they're obviously have bigger plans for him than that, and then the stuff from Mark's whole thing is really really interesting, and he's really being forced into like hyperdrive on how fast this dude's got to grow up, and this season is showing that even further. First season was him about just becoming invincible. Now it's like, what's the shit you deal with as invincible? You know, now in your life, in your personal life, and this and that. So I think it's really fascinating that the whole story arc with him.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And this character's really, really grown on me. I really do enjoy watching him. But I will tell you, now that we're done with him, let's go into my favorite, because there are three plot lines. So we'll go through my favorite plot line next, which is I forget the guy's name. There's something shapeshifter, but it's the fucking Martian Manhunter. I mean,
yeah, essentially. Shapesmith.
Shapesmith, that's it. I loved everything about that plot line because it starts off with, oh god, something's coming from Mars. It's a big ship. It's coming for us. And if you remember, the whole Shapesmith introduction was like, they don't know my secret that I'm from Mars. And then, like, all right, guys, I got something to tell you, and it's going to blow your mind. And it's, I'm from Mars. And everyone's like, yeah, we know. Why the fuck do you think we let you on the team? Like, what do you know about the Martian ship, idiot? It's great.
Yeah, moment. Like, Cecil's like, yeah, we're going to let people on the team, and we've done none of the homework into it. Like, come on.
Oh, it's so good. I love that. I love that part. And so the whole thing is, the Shapesmith is a piece of shit. I mean, let's admit it. He's a piece of shit when we find out what he does in this episode. Because he's a Martian, and apparently they live underground, and they have these servants that are only their servants because they can't pierce their skin, because if they can pierce your skin, they're just brains and tentacles and take over your body. And he gets bored, and he wants to go explore. And so there was a Martian exploration from Earth, and he knocked one of the astronauts out and took his shape and went home and wrecked his apartment and just left him up there to die.
Such a douchebag.
Fucking terrible. And there's a great moment where he explains that, and I think Cecil goes, so this is your fault that this, and this happened. He's like, yes, you've been listening. Yes, exactly. Which he's one of my favorite characters in this show right now.
Yeah, he's pretty well written. Like, I didn't know what to make of him when they first introduced him, but yeah, over these last couple, I'm more on board now with Shapesmith. I thought he was more annoying at first.
I did too, but I like the joke paid off. I think that's what it is. Mm-hmm. They were setting up a joke, and either it paid off and it was great, or it didn't, and he was just annoying. But I think it paid off because, like, let's just go through the whole quest, right? So they have to go, and they pretty much assemble the A team of the Guardians of the Globe, and they get Eve back and recruit her, and they go into space to try to stop these things. And Invincible. And they go into space to try to stop what is essentially the astronaut left for dead taken over by the brain things. and they're coming to Earth to take over everyone. And they go to attack, and the Martians are there. They shoot, they destroy their ship. Someone goes, "Can't you put up the shields?" And someone else goes, "This isn't Star Trek, man. We don't have any weapons." Boom. They survive. They get on the ship. They have this awesome battle with these tentacle things, like where they're using fighting and also this whole thing like probably like a kind of emitter to destroy them and send them back. And ultimately, what happens is they beat these things. They save the astronaut, and they free the Martians because the Martians are like, yeah, once this guy left, he doomed us all because he left that human there, and now that there's a host, that thing's killing us all. And so they save everyone, and the Martians pretty much go, "Thanks for saving us, but the betrayer has to stay." And they go, for what? Oh, execution. And they look at each other, smash cut to them just escaping, and Mark literally ripping through fucking spaceships, just killing people to save the Shapesmith, this piece of shit, because he's part of the team, right? Family.
Yeah, as Vin Diesel would say, family.
That's right. And I bet you at the end of this that we didn't see it, but they all went and drank Corona and they had a barbecue and they raced. And they stole some fucking TVs. It was great.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything there? Because that was my favorite through line.
No, you nailed every part of that. I mean, it is one. I mean, it's not like, well, the next thing I think you're gonna say is probably one of the like the heartfelt things, the thing with the Guardians of the Globe that went down. But
yeah, that's
go for it.
All right, so the third one is, so the B team is left with, I'm terrible with names, but it's the woman who can multiply herself,
duplicate,
right? Duplicate. Yeah. That's it. Duplicate. The woman who can, like the Wasp, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
And Jason Mantzoukas. I always forget his name. Rex something or other, right? Rexplode. Yeah. Oh shit! I remember his name. Rexplode. First time in forever. And they're like, yeah, great. All right, they're gonna go up there. What's the odds that two things are gonna happen that need the Guardians? Let's order some food. And then this B team. Now, have we seen these guys before? Because I don't remember. Did we see this B team before?
No. There was an introduction to like this like Lizard King at some point, but that's basically it. No, everyone else was just kind of like brand new.
Okay, because pretty much they take over a government installation, hold everyone for ransom. They pull a Dr. Evil, like, we're going to fire these weapons, or unless you give us $1 million. They pull one of those. And they send in the B team, and everyone comes in like this is going to be easy. And actually, Duplicate actually says, I thought you said this was going to be easy. And they get their asses kicked. Like, there's one guy who kills Duplicate, eats the Wasp, bites off Rexplode's hand, and only dies because Rexplode happened to be holding an explosion. Like a bomb in his hand. When he did that, it blew his head up.
Yeah. I also want to say that it's Shrinking Ray is the Ant-Man type, character that we get in here.
Thank you. I rely on you for this, Ed.
I just want to say how deadly the ability to shrink has become that we've seen in Invincible. And this fight scene that you're talking about right now, how bloody and gory it gets. And also what we saw in The Boys. Like the infamous scene now in the beginning of season 3. Like, man, that is such a deadly power. I never would have thought about that, the way these two shows have shown us.
Well, and I think that started with the whole theory about how Ant-Man was going to defeat Thanos, right?
That's jump in his ass.
But I'm going to say this. As someone, as a human being in this world, right? And I'm sure you agree with me. If I had the power to shrink down, I would never, ever, ever, ever climb in someone's body and then just get big again. Because then you're going to have their shit, piss, and viscera all over you.
Yes. Now, the question, though, I guess if we're going to discuss this, is the life or death scenario. If that's your only way out.
I mean,
in self-defense.
God, though. But how could that be my only way out? How could there not be another way out?
I am presenting you with the no-win situation. Well, I'm sorry. Was it in Star Trek again? The
Kobayashi Maru.
Kobayashi Maru. That's what I'm giving you. The Kobayashi Maru of the shrinking ability. This is where we're heading now. So you're trying to tell me that you would not. This would not be your way out. You're gonna Captain Kirk this shit and set it up to get out.
That's it. I'm gonna Captain Kirk this shit, eat an apple, and go fight some fucking Klingons and nail a green woman. All right, that's what I would do.
Fair enough. I will say though, in a life or death scenario, if that's how it has to go down, then so be it. But I don't disagree with you. It would be fucking disgusting on every level.
I mean, all right. Let's agree to this. It is the last ditch nuke. Like you know that you'll survive, but you're never as a person coming back from that, and you're only ever going to do it once because the only reason to ever do that will only ever happen to you once in your lifetime.
Fair enough. Fine. I'm with you. Though.
Okay. I'm glad we've resolved these hard situations.
Yes,
here
these are the things you have to do. You have to contemplate your shrinking abilities and how you would murder somebody in self-defense. We did say, right? We're here to answer the tough questions.
The tough questions. Is this a movie? Would you curl up Thanos' ass if you were really small and then, re-enlarge?
Yes.
These are the tough ones. But all right, getting back to the actual show and things that happen in it. So all right, so we great fight scene. Rexplode, lot of respect for him because he holds his own. I think he winds up taking out all of these people, right?
Well, except the Lizard King though, because the Lizard guy wheels ahead and shoots him in the back of the fucking head.
No, in this episode, yes. Yeah. In this episode, he comes up, he takes out everyone. Lizard King comes up, has this great quote. You're very brave, but what's better in a battle? Someone brave to run in and fight, or someone smart enough to wait till his opponent can't fight and then kill him? Mm-hmm. And Rexplode's like, shut up and do it already. And then he does. Well, then it's the next episode. Yeah, and then he does. 6. And he pops him in the head. You see him go down. He calls. It looks really dire because the guy who ate Rexplode's hand also ate the Wasp. No, I'm sorry. What did you say her name was?
Shrinking Ray.
Shrinking Ray. Ate Shrinking Ray. And then Rexplode gets up. And he's fucked up. And blood's spurting from his head. And I this is a terrible reference, but I couldn't help but thinking of Mary Jo Buttafuoco.
Wow. That's where we went with this.
Because for a moment, I call bullshit. He just shot this guy in the head. How is he not dead? And then I remembered, oh, no, wait. There's a famous case of that, of a woman who was shot in the head, point blank range, with a gun. The aim was off, and it fucked her up, but she survived. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then it's a comic book, so it's okay that Rexplode then gets up and fucking destroys this guy and just like pounds his face in.
Yeah. It's almost like Goodfellas style, like how much he smashes his face in.
No. It was great and satisfying, and I love that he gets up and he's like blood spurting. He's fucked up. Like this is adrenaline. This is just like, I'm a superhero. This is adrenaline. I'm just taking you down with me. And then it just so happens that as he's destroying this guy, the guards come in and they're like, all right, we got to get this guy to a hospital. And he's like, no, I'm fine. Then that's how it starts off the 6th episode, Invincible. And he passes out.
I always love the way that they drop in the title. It's always very fun.
I do too. It's real fun.
But yeah, I guess so. I guess to follow up on that scene, yeah. So the duplicate's actually dead. Out of the three of them, she's the only one who actually remains dead. Besides,
because
Shrinking Ray getting eaten and fucking Rexplode survives a shot to the back of the head.
Yep.
She's done.
And Shrinking Ray does this great thing that you just kind of hear from the guy's chest, and she just pulls herself because I guess she could. I don't know why she couldn't get big or it didn't work or whatever. But she literally.
Well, I think what it was is that he kept on trying to ingest her and kept like trying to swallow her to keep going. So I guess he was pushing her down to a point where maybe it was just overbearing and she couldn't like use her ability to like snap back and explode like she eventually does. That's what it looked like to me. At least.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, but it's a cool visual of her like freeing herself by pulling herself up through his neck hole because his head's exploded. But then we do see Duplicate, and it's a bunch of them in the morgue, and they're all mangled because we saw her get fucked up in multiple different ways. And what is the Forever Man? What's
the Immortal?
Thank you. God, man, my brain sucks sometimes. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Yeah.
It's the Immortal.
It's the Immortal. All right, so the Immortal is really fucked up by this death because they were sleeping together, but he really had feelings for her, and I don't think he realized it until this episode because he says to one of the guys, like, I don't know why I feel this way. And he's like, because you loved her. And he's like, but I've loved a lot of people. And they all died.
He is the Immortal. So he's been through lifetimes upon lifetime upon lifetime and seen a lot of shit. But yet and the only thing we've really seen with his relationship with Duplicate up until now was him with a bunch of them in the shower or something like that. Like it was just acknowledged that they were sleeping together. But apparently there was like much more than that, which I thought was interesting. I honestly didn't totally see that one coming. And like Cecil tries to send him on a vacation and he's not fucking having it at all. Like he's not trying to do that. And then there's this reading that comes into the sky. There's an incoming thing, and he's thinking Omni-Man immediately and wants to fucking let out his rage. He flies up into space, and then, he runs into our buddy over there, Alan the Alien.
Seth Rogen, like, hey, and Seth Rogen's like, hey, I just want to smoke some pot with Mark, and this guy's like trying to fight him. And he's like, whoa, buddy, I want to fight you. I just want to smoke some pot here in your planet. I don't talk to James Franco anymore. And then he's fighting him. And then he puts him in a headlock, which I love.
The James Franco thing just
well, because he got canceled, right? Like, so they don't hang out anymore.
Yeah, I think so. I would assume because Seth Rogen's career is still like flourishing big time, and like
right.
James Franco is just sent to like the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
That's what I can imagine he is. That's why I think canceled people go. They just go to the Phantom Zone. And that's it. They're just they're like stuck in the thing.
It's Mel Gibson, James Franco.
Hold on. I don't know. Mel Gibson seems like Mel Gibson has like somehow returned somewhat.
Oh, okay. He's uncanceled himself. All right.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how the rules work for that, but
I don't know either. All right, so I'll just go Harvey Weinstein, but in like glass, like in Superman 2, like nice too.
That's how I picture it, and I think that they sit there with the squirt gun and stuff and squirt. For those who may not be aware, that was the early '80s Supergirl movie that we did cover on here. That is a completely insane visions of the Phantom Zone.
I actually think that was the movie that prompted us to ask the hard question, is this a movie? Because I posited it was not. It was an experience.
Yes, this is true. We had to break it down. Cameras were rolling. Actors were hired. What happened? We're not really sure what we can call it. So I guess also, so Alan the Alien is basically there to talk to Mark to try to recruit him. Because apparently the leader of Alan's planet is a Viltrumite, who is voiced by none other than Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime himself. which I do love the
Yeah.
fact that he's involved in this. And they want to take down the whole Viltrumite empire, and they're trying to find someone else who has revolted against them, which would be Mark Grayson, Invincible. And apparently, Omni-Man's last words to him were, "Read my books," and he was like, "What the fuck does that even mean?" And apparently, he wrote a bunch of novels that have clues in them, and they're trying to dissect them and stuff.
So before I tell you my theory on these books, I'm going to say right here, right now, that the last words to my son before I pass away are going to be, come here, read my books." Because it's the only way anyone's ever going to read them, so I might as well, at least in death, have an audience.
So you're going to go with Omni-Man then?
I'm going to go the Omni-Man route.
Okay.
But I'm not going to like, turn on my family and try to kill my son. I just want him to read my writing. Anyway, what I really liked about this, and my theory about this, is at one point Mark is reading them aloud and we're getting a little snippet of what it sounds like, and I was like, this sounds like his reports back to Viltrium Prime, or whatever the planet's called, like, because it's like, the writer, the lone writer, had a weapon, and that weapon could take down anything, and this is the planet that it looked like, and it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, on Earth, when you don't know it's real, it sounds like really interesting science fiction. I'm not going to say good, but interesting, and they do say it doesn't sell well.
Yeah.
But in this context, I think he was just publishing his fucking reports he was sending back to Viltrium.
So you don't think that it is what he says it was, like, or at least that's what Mark thinks it is that it is clues on how to take down the Viltrumites if he needed to?
No, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
Right? But I think it's like, I don't think it was like, I'm writing these stories as clues. I think it was, okay, because he was a very loyal Viltrumite up until Earth. And they make that clear in this episode. You have presided over the conquest of many places before Earth. Why was this important? And I think what it was is, at one point his job was to look around for shit that can hurt the Viltrumites, and he typed up his reports and sent it to him. They make it clear that the lone rider, Seth Rogen's like, yo, I once smoked a dude with someone who told me about that guy. I think he might be real or fake. He's a legend. I might be improvising a bit here, but I think the whole thing is like, it became it can act as a guide to something that can kill the Viltrumites, but I think originally it sounds like just reports he was writing on his escapades to send to his superiors.
Okay, all right, I can get on board with that. Yeah, I think that was it, right? I think that's kind of
I think that's it. I mean, there's that that very, very small D plot with the guy who's a robot who got killed in the first season.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and they brought him back, and they kind of expose him. He talks to Cecil. Great moment. I need the room. And Cecil's just like, all right, what's up? Let's talk. And they realize it's him. They saved his brain. His body died, so they put his brain in a robot. And then he does the same thing for Mark's best friend's boyfriend, who was killed in the 4th episode of the first season.
Yeah, there was like that mass murder that was going on at the school.
And he's not dead, but he wasn't recovering. So for whatever reason, he did that. And that clearly is setting something up. And then it ends with, and this was weird because I almost forgot about this, but it's got to go somewhere because we don't have that many episodes left, right? We only have
supposed to only be 2. That's it.
There you go. The multiverse jumper shows up at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I mean, I would like to see them get back to that storyline because they were all about that in the beginning, and all of a sudden it's kind of just been tabled for a while.
And they got to do something. They got 2 episodes left.
Yeah, well, you got that, you got him, and then you still got the Omni-Man main storyline going on here. Because I mean, there will be a season 3, I'm sure, and stuff. So
Of
they don't
course,
have
of
to
course.
wrap up
And
everything.
there should be.
Yeah,
There should be.
agree.
This is a very, very cool show.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll see what happens next week with episode 7 of Invincible. We can drop the spoiler warning because the show came out in 1995. Yeah, but let's jump into. So we're on our countdown to X-Men 97, which we've adjusted on the fly of how we're going to do this, but we were counting down each season of X-Men the animated series, and we're going to hit each episode of season 4 briefly. Won't like in the super details, just sharing our thoughts and maybe some things that stand out because there are 21 friggin' episodes in this season.
There are.
I will say,
and I
something
have to
though,
say, some of them do feel like fillers, and it's the first time I felt like that.
Yes, and on our group text with me, you, and Rick, I had chatted that, and it was. I don't know. I wanted to have a chance to look more into it to find out, like, was the 21 episode account like ordered or demanded by Fox at that time or something? I don't know, because there is some weird episodes in here, and
yeah,
this is my least favorite of the 4 seasons we've rewatched so far.
I'll be honest with you. I was gonna say that up until I watched those last 4 episodes.
Yes.
Of this season. And then I was like, holy shit, like, no, this was awesome. And so, like, that I really have to believe, because I think there were about maybe 3 or 4 episodes that I would say are filler, right?
Yeah.
And this is 21 episodes, and they usually do, they were doing 13 then 19.
Yep.
And so I would not be surprised if it was a thing like, no, you got to give us more episodes.
I think it was something like that, but I will stay. I'm going to stand strong on this is my least favorite of the 4, but I'm not saying that it was garbage. I am not saying that there wasn't some cool shit in it, because there's definitely some really cool episodes in here, but there are like some fillers, and we'll get to those in a second. So
yeah.
And again, we didn't feel like that. Even the 19 episode season, I didn't feel like there were fillers.
No,
this one
I agree. I am going to say objectively, I think it's the worst season only because the first 3 were cohesive. Mm-hmm. Like, I think every time we covered every episode we covered on Granny's, we were like, no, this feels like you're reading a really well-written run. Like, everyone has a moment. The story arc, there are individual stories with an overarching arc. This is the first season that didn't feel like that cohesive. There's great stuff in it, but there were episodes where I'm like, this didn't have to exist.
Yeah. So in episode 1 of season 5, that's where we get the return of the Juggernaut, who comes back. And this is an episode. So by the way, just to say, I definitely watched this season when it aired, when I was, 15, 16 years old or something like that. So, because I know we were chatting to see, I was trying to figure out when exactly did I make it through this whole run, or did I just bail out because I was like in high school at that point, so I wasn't sure where I tapped out. I'm curious to see if I did watch season 5 or not. I'm sure it'll come back if I did, and I'll stamp it as this is my second viewing, or maybe it's my first. I definitely remember a lot of these episodes. Specifically this one with the Juggernaut. So the Juggernaut comes back, and I will say, the Juggernaut returns walking on the bottom of the fucking ocean and punches a shark.
That was badass.
That was badass. That was
badass.
Was that not very Jason Takes Manhattan?
Yes, walking. Yeah, Jason Takes Toronto, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Manhattan, air quotes.
No, I have to admit, I actually really like this episode because it showed us the lead up to how they got rid of the Juggernaut, which was just to do the only way you can ever get rid of the Juggernaut is just throw you into space somewhere. Except he didn't go into space. He landed in the ocean. And he went, fuck you. I'm going to walk on the ocean, punch a shark, and fuck you up, Xavier. And you got to respect that.
He walks in the ocean, punches a shark, okay, on his way to the mansion because he wants to go after Charles. And at the same time, there's simultaneously some goofball is finding his ruby that's there, and he's going to go ahead and steal the Juggernaut's powers.
So funny.
And basically, the dude steals his powers eventually and ends up dancing in a club trying to pick up girls. And that's basically what he does with it, and that's it.
here's the thing. This guy does what any heterosexual man of his age in this time would do with the Juggernaut's power. Because the Juggernaut's a comic book character. Juggernaut gets that power and goes, I'm going to try to kill my brother every chance I get who's a powerful mutant. I don't want to kill my brother. I don't want to kill anyone. You know what I want to do at 20? I want to get laid. That's exactly what this guy's trying to do.
Get it on.
Get it on.
So on his way, all right, just follow me here. And Jason, tell me if I'm exaggerating this for the sake of humor. His walking on the water, punches a shark, jumps out, rips on a bridge, rips the top off a New York City cab, starts driving it. He drives it right into the fucking mansion. God. Okay? And gets caught up in the danger room where he has to fight the Hulk at one point. Not really the Hulk, but like Danger Room Hulk. And
yeah.
Then, and that's where he is before his powers get zapped around, and then he's in like a coma, and then Charles sees he's in trouble, and he's got to help him. And this, though, that part of it is where, for me, is the meaning of this episode, though. Like, legit is the meaning of it, because then we finally get the childhood background of Charles Xavier and his brother, who never really, that's only been alluded to briefly in this series up until this point, and it's on full display now, and it's really fucked up, man. Like, Charles's mother was getting taken advantage of by the Juggernaut's father and sent him to military school because he was picking on Chuck. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where, like, the Juggernaut's dad was an abusive scam artist, and because the Juggernaut's dad was his dad, he couldn't hate him, so he hated Xavier. And that's what this whole thing is about. That's what every time the Juggernaut goes knocking at the X-Men's door, it's to resolve some childhood trauma with his dad. And I gotta say, for a cartoon aimed at teenagers, that's really brilliant. I love that they were so intelligent with crafting, like, no, childhood trauma really does fuck you up, and sometimes siblings have to get down in the dirt to realize and come to understanding about their childhood. And I don't know, I thought that was cool.
Fully agreed. What I also thought was pretty wild was Logan and Scott are trying to track down the goofball guy when he's got the Juggernaut's powers, and they track him down in the club while he's dancing with girls on chairs in each arm, which is fucking bizarre.
Great.
But there's a Power Rangers cameo. They break through like a studio, and the Power Rangers are being filmed. Like, they're filming the show. Because this was also made by Saban Studios, who also made Power Rangers at the time. So there's that's the Easter egg. Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Was a pretty interesting thing.
That is awesome. And I've been watching these episodes, and I've been seeing Saban at the end, and I've been like, no, that name looks familiar. But I wasn't a big Power Ranger guy. So I didn't put two and two together till just now. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that was it with that episode. So I thought that one was one of the pretty cool episodes here. Episode 2, though, is the U.S. military thaws out Omega Red because they have a nuclear submarine that's on the bottom of the ocean that they need to get to, and it's highly radioactive. So they figured, let's get the guy who knows all the codes and would be immune to this type of shit. So they get Omega Red back, but his whole thing is, listen, I'll do this, but I need 2 of the X-Men that fucking put me here, and they need to go with me. And that's Wolverine and Storm, who get sent there. So Storm, of course, in a submarine underwater, her claustrophobia comes into play there. So that comes back as well. And he goes ahead and launches these warheads eventually, and they get stopped by Rogue and Beast, who are the ones who are there. Because there's also a lot of, I felt like throughout the season, there was more of that thing that I keep on talking about in the past ones.
100%.
X-Men vanish and go to the deli out of nowhere. Most of the time unexplained.
Yeah. Look, Jubilee's getting a chopped cheese for about 6 episodes in a row.
Oh, yeah. She's the one who's mostly gone through most of this damn season. So in the end, though, virtually that happens, and then he gets sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and that's kind of where he is. I don't know if maybe the Juggernaut will walk the bottom of the ocean again one day and decides to run into him and stuff. Who knows? But that's where Omega Red is. If you're ever wondering where the hell Omega Red is, because throughout the season we don't hear about him again.
No, we don't. But I'm sure next season he's going to come to Xavier's house and go, I've walked through the ocean and I have walked 500 miles. What's the 90s work. After all?
Yeah, that would work. I would say that would definitely track it if they decided to go with that thing. So I'll say episodes 3 and 4 are this arc, and that's where we get Asteroid M introduced here, and that's when we get Fabian Cortez as a character that gets introduced here. So basically, Magneto returns to build Asteroid M and recruits mutants to live there. And he's taking mutants up and he's flying them up and stuff like that. And he goes to Genosha to recruit them and gets met by Sentinels. So of course Sentinels are fighting him and stuff like that, and he runs into them. But there's also these like group of mutant sympathizers led by Fabian Cortez, and also apparently another one of Charles's exes. We've learned a lot about Charles Xavier's love life in these 4 seasons so far.
Charles was not always a paraplegic, all right? Charles Xavier. You know what I mean?
Hey, he even got Lalandra when he was in the chair already. So nothing stops Charles. Nothing stops Charles.
I don't have to touch you to make you orgasm.
Probably. I mean, he might do some crazy shit, man.
They say it's all mental. But so I want to actually point out right here, right? It was at this moment, I think I texted you and Rick. It was this moment I went, how the fuck can anyone claim that Magneto is a villain? Because Magneto doesn't go to Genosha just to recruit mutants. Magneto goes to Genosha to liberate slaves.
Yeah.
Because it is known, they make a joke in the UN. Oh, are you kidnapping mutants to enslave them again, Genosha? Ha, isn't slavery funny for us non-mutants? And no, this show's never been woke. And Magneto goes and says, fuck this. I now have some power and a place for you guys. I have built a place for you guys. Now I'm coming to free anyone who wants in on what I'm selling. And I'm watching this, and I'm going, okay, so he knew that the Genosians had mutant slaves, as did Charles Xavier. And he spent his own time and money and resources and mutant powers to build a place to bring freed mutant slaves to live freely. And Charles Xavier, when he sends his X-Men, I wasn't even sure who the X-Men were going to back up. I don't know, man. Magneto's not a villain in this, according to me. Just saying.
No, well, in this arc, right? Like and that's the thing that we talked about. That's why I think Magneto is such a fascinating X-Men character in general. Because yes, he is the X-Men's prime. You want to say their arch nemesis or whatever, but he also teams up with them a lot at the same time. He has this interesting relationship with Charles, who they're like BFFs, so they won't actually kill one another. But and that's what I love about it. But in this one, yes, in this 2-episode arc, he's not the bad guy. To quote Ben Affleck, Daredevil, I'm not the bad guy, kid. You know.
But I'll tell you something though. I think what he does in this arc really does show he's not the bad guy ever.
Well, when he wants to murder people, then I think that's where when he does. In this, he has no interest. Yeah, no, in this he has no interest.
No, fair enough. But like he never wants to murder people just for kicks.
Agreed.
He's not the Joker.
No,
right?
No,
he doesn't go. His thing is, it's not that he ever wants to murder people. He has no problem murdering people to further the agenda of freeing the mutants.
Yes, agreed.
And so I think even like outside of this, even when he does shit that we morally think is bad, he's not the villain. Because that is what the second episode of 97 posits, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But I think this is the episode where it comes from, and I think really Magneto, not a villain at all, ever.
Yeah, so Magneto's, like you said, Magneto is all about taking mutants to Asteroid M. He's literally flying them up, like on his own accord and his own powers, and he's draining himself. And Fabian Cortez is like, no, I'm about the Magneto part of this of we slaughter the humans and we take over because that's the way it's supposed to be. And Magneto's not really about that. And he attacks a weakened Magneto and sets Gambit up to take the fall, that he's the one who hurt Magneto, but yet he's the one who's trying to launch this coup to go ahead and to seize power on Asteroid M. So that's where that whole thing goes. Amelia, who's one of these Magneto fanatics, that's what we find out is one of Charles's ex-girlfriends, that apparently after this is where we get it established, where Charles lost his legs in a battle with Magneto, officially in this continuity. But Amelia was one of the nurses that was helping him, and they formed a relationship from that. And when he was starting the X-Men, she was not about that. She wasn't trying to be about that life at all. She wasn't trying to do the X-Men thing. So she laid it down and said, hey, it's either me or the X-Men. And he chose the X-Men to go ahead and to launch that. So that's where she is. But she comes around by the end of the episode and also helps them because she sees that Fabian has kind of lost his shit, because she's also not about like murdering people or slaughtering humans per se. She just wasn't really about the whole X-Men part of this and like fighting and being like superheroes and stuff. And by the way, the X-Men also have spacesuits that they've built with Shi'ar technology, because Beast does mention that. And we get Wolverine in his like gray like stealth outfit in this thing, and like Beast has got some upgraded shit, and so does Rogue. So I think that was pretty cool. But Magneto eventually returns to full power and on Earth. So he goes like with the magnetic pole of Earth and everything and repowers himself. They defeat Cortez and they take down Asteroid M. And Cortez is found by Apocalypse because, of course, Apocalypse appears. He is back like Palpatine. You know,
he's always back.
He's always back. It doesn't matter. He'll always be back. And by the way, there's also in two shots, there's a Black Panther cameo in this. I know it's a blink and you'll miss it. That happens.
I missed it. I must have blinked.
Yes, there is that. There's more of these things, like we mentioned last season. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange has multiple cameos in this series. So I do think that's important to mention too, because I feel like the groundwork is being set for X-Men 97 to possibly have some like cameos we're not thinking of. So that's also pretty cool.
Yeah, so people don't cry like, oh no, they're sold out. Oh no, this sucks. Oh no, Phase 4 is terrible. Yeah, it's like it happened also in the cartoon.
Yes. So again, for those who are just watching X-Men 97 and maybe watched these shows when they were kids, you might want to go back and revisit them, because groundwork was laid. They've done the heavy lifting to set these things up. So, you know. All right, so episode 5, Charles suffers a slight concussion, which allows the Shadow King, our old buddy, to return and to attack him during that weakened state.
Guess who's back?
Back again.
Shadow King. Shadow's back.
And it basically takes them while Charles's time in Cairo when he met Storm. So we kind of get their meeting stuff. A lot of flashbacks explain a lot of origin stories, I feel like, in this series. That's what we're relearning now at this point. And why he formed the X-Men to begin with. It was because of people like the Shadow King existing. And he felt like we needed to have someone to gain these powers, who have these abilities to stand up to people such as the Shadow King. And they even show that visual Apocalypse and Magneto and Sinister and all this other shit. And Jean and Charles battle the Shadow King and defeat him on the astral plane. So that's essentially how episode 5 kind of like wraps up. And he thought, I still don't think this was like a filler one. I thought there was some cool shit in here that at least you're following up on stuff that happened previously.
Yeah, I don't think it was a great episode, but I don't think it was filler. No. I thought it was fun. You're following up with the Shadow King. He's not someone you can use a lot because he's so powerful. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're like, okay, we're gonna use a Shadow King to explore. Following up on the relationship they set up about why the Shadow King was specifically interested in Storm in that episode, right? And so you kind of get that backstory, a little backstory of Storm, a little backstory of Professor X. I got no problem with it. Not great, but solid.
Yeah, it was a solid episode. We haven't got to it. Episode 7 is where I'm going to start losing my shit. But episode 6, though, we forget follow up at Morph, who is on Muir Island, who's getting treated by Moira McTaggart, who was with Banshee. And basically she says, hey, kid, you're not ready for this. You're kind of still dealing with PTSD from what happened with Sinister. Maybe you shouldn't go back out into the field. He decides, no, I'm going to do this. He goes back to the team. The team welcomes him back, but yet they encounter the Sentinels, and Morph freezes up due to his PTSD that's there, because that's where he was left off. That happens, and that freeze up causes the Sentinels to kidnap Charles Xavier, and he has guilt about that. And Cyclops benches him, in a result of that. Like, just tell him, like, hey, man, like, with all due respect, maybe we should show back and hang back in the mansion while we go out and do this thing. And they encounter Master Mold again, who, we know we have not seen the last of as well. Master Mold is back and sends his Sentinels after Trask and Garrick, who are kind of in the woods and living on their own and hiding from Master Mold. And he reprograms.
That was weird.
Yeah, I didn't. That was a little bit odd. And Master Mold reprograms the Sentinels to go ahead and track them down as well. But Morph eventually gets out of his benching, joins the battle, helps them kill Master Mold, and in air quotes again. And then he leaves, admitting that he's not ready, and goes back to Muir Island. So, an important episode for the future.
Agreed. Again, not a great episode, a solid episode that is tied into, and it's like when you read the books, right? When you read a really good run of X-Men, not every book is great. Some of them do what they got.
There are shitty issues.
Exactly, and that's what this felt like. Not a shitty. I didn't think it was shitty, but it felt like, this was a weaker episode in a larger, better story. But I see the connections. I see why it's there.
Where I don't see it is episode 7. And I'm going to say this right now. This is my least favorite episode of the entire fucking X-Men animated series that we've covered to date, because there's nothing. It is. No, I actually hate this episode. I'm going to pull all the punches here.
Wow. Holy shit.
I despise this episode.
Much?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Me and Rick were chatting about this yesterday after I had a few car bombs. And I kind of went off on this episode, like, into some detail.
Did this episode like cripple your loved ones?
I'm just saying, it's crap. Listen, Scott randomly goes to some fucking town called Skull Mesa to give a gift to this Dr. Prescott, who apparently was a dude that he worked with Charles and him and worked together a long time ago with. He loses his powers when he gets there, so he doesn't have the optic blast. Encounters a town that's really acting a little bit strange. And then there's a guy named Solar who comes up, and his crew took over. They basically took over Prescott's mining operation. And Scott convinces some local mutants to fight back against Solar. And they defeat him. And they were, after revealing his lies about Prescott, because he was running around telling the town that Prescott was like this asshole, basically. And that's the episode. It never gets like acknowledged again, at least that we know of, right? Because we're maybe in season 5, maybe in 97, but
maybe.
This is a nothing burger episode. This is literally one and I never say this shit, you can fucking skip this one if you're doing a rewatch because I can't imagine it's gonna get referenced again. Am I being too harsh? Am I being? This is the filler one.
It's filler. I mean, here's the thing: is this? Do I hate this episode? No, it didn't cripple my loved ones as I was asking it. But like, if you're a diehard X-Men person and you're like, I want to watch every single X-Men thing out there, then yeah, you have to watch it. I'm sorry. If
That's
you're like,
prerogative.
I want to watch a bunch, right? But if you're like, I just want to watch some episodes to catch up for 97, I'm with Ed. Now, there's no way this is ever going to be referenced again. And even like it had an opportunity to be something. It had not, because it was like kind of going into some of Cyclops' stuff. And Cyclops is a character. My Walter, my co-teacher, friend of the show, that's his favorite X-Men. Love big Cyclops stan, right? And this was an episode that could have been something that really did something cool with Cyclops. Like, okay, we're going to get into his past. We're going to add to his ethos, add to what makes him tick. And none of that is here. It's just so weird and shoehorned.
That's what I'm saying. This is the worst episode of the X-Men animated series. Again, to this point. Because I've heard some not great things about season 5. And
okay, yeah. To this point, I agree.
To this point. There might be worse. Who knows? But right now, this is the worst episode of the X-Men. Again, there are worse things. I'm not saying I'd rather watch Supergirl again. I'm not going that far. But
no.
The bar, the standard that this series has set, this is well below it. This is just
agreed.
It's nothing. Now though, they do rebound in episode 8, where Rogue and Gambit and Logan go on a ski trip and they discover Nightcrawler. Yes, I know we have a lot to talk. What? Okay, all right. No,
I disagree that they rebound.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Well, I'll explain why I believe that, but let me go through the synopsis quick and tell me if there's anything. They go on a ski trip. They stumble upon Nightcrawler because there's this town who is saying that there's this demon going around and who is messing with everybody and everything like that. And there's a monk that tries to kill Gambit in this monastery that's there, and who ends up burning down the monastery that they're in. Logan finds religion apparently with Nightcrawler at the end of the episode, because if you're familiar with Nightcrawler, he's like this very like faith-driven character that's there. And it's basically, hey, guess what? Nightcrawler exists in this X-Men universe. Here's his introduction to the team. And that's why I think they rebounded, because again, I like Nightcrawler as a character. I was just glad to see him.
I love Nightcrawler.
Yeah. I was just glad to see him introduced. That's why I'll say it was already better than episode 7. Because episode 7 there's just
fair enough. Nightcrawler alone makes this better than episode 7.
Yeah,
but
that's all.
I do not like this episode. And before I tell you why, before I go, because there's a litany of reasons, I want to preface it by saying, A, Nightcrawler is one of, if not my favorite X-Men. I love his look. I love his power. I've read some real cool stories with him as a kid.
Did you read the Nightcrawler miniseries that Rick owns?
No, probably not. I mean, Rick is the Beyonder.
Rick, when you watch this, you should chat with Jason and mail him your Nightcrawler 4-part miniseries so he can read it.
I'd love to. Or just tell me what it's called and I'll find it. But I love the character. And I'm going to say this because part of my problems might be controversial. So I'm going to say this. I absolutely think it is 100% necessary for Kurt Wagner, a.k.a. Nightcrawler, to be religious and Christian and Catholic. Well, not Catholic, but Christian in particular. It's very important to his story. It's part of the whole symbolism where he literally looks like a devil, but he acts like the Christian devil, but acts in accordance with a Christian saint. I think that dynamic of the character is what I think makes him really interesting for me, right? So I want to preface that because what I hate about this is this whole unilateral Catholicism is the only religion, or Christianity is the only religion, and this kind of is preachy because, all right, they meet him, and he's a monk, and that's fine, and they're cribbing off of Frankenstein to the point where like the guy who is the police officer, the prefect or whatever, is the guy from Frankenstein.
Well done. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it.
And then ultimately the plot of this is a stupid because it hinges on the audience not knowing Nightcrawler's a good guy. Because part of it is Nightcrawler really a bad guy who just tried to kill Gambit? And I'm sorry, no one who's ever picked up an X-Men comic thinks that Nightcrawler just tried to kill Gambit. Clearly, it's the fucking shadowy druid who's sitting in the background. And so I don't even think, like, plot-wise it was stupid. It doesn't pay off in any real sense because it's not a smart story, except that we get Nightcrawler. And then it ends with this whole thing about Wolverine. Like, his whole plot through this episode is, I just fight my way through things, and I don't believe in religion. And if you do, that's fine, but leave it away from me. And the last 5 minutes of this episode is, oh, Holy Father, for I have sinned as I read this Bible, schnick, schnick. And it's like, this is real fucking preachy. It's real preachy when you have the one character, because no one else gives a shit about Catholicism or Christianity, whatever. Rogue's not going, Cher, I'm going to have go preach too. No, Rogue and Gambit don't give a shit. They're just like, hey, that's this guy's thing. We're not going to comment. We're going to do our thing. The one character who is actively gets moved by it and brought peace by it. Oh, and by the way, next episode, he's like killing people.
I was going to say, it didn't take too long.
Yeah, it's a lazy episode on so many levels, and it really digs in that whole, like, Christianity's the answer thing, which you can argue with me on this, but I would be right. If you look at TV in the time we grew up, it is written to program us that Christianity is the only religion. You don't really see anything outside of jokes about Jewish people or Muslims or anything like that. And this does fall in that time period. So that's also it. And it's very against the ethos of this show and this property, which is inclusion for all. And it's okay that we don't agree.
I'm just thinking of if there's been any other. I guess the only other mention of any kind of other religion was when Charles previously had Magnus revisit the Holocaust when he was a child, so they acknowledge, but they don't really.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to just jog my brain right now. Is there any other acknowledgement of anything? I guess that's the only thing.
No,
that I can think of.
That's it, and that's trauma. That's not religion. It's not like.
Well, I'm just saying they acknowledge that
like
that another religion exists. Yeah.
No, they do, but like my whole point is, it's not even the acknowledgement of other religions, because yeah, they acknowledge a voodoo thing exists too, but it's like, no, this is the one religion that gets us all together. Like, yeah, the Jews, they suffered. Magneto, he's the villain though, but yeah, here, Logan, take this Bible and really be at peace. And it's made even worse when we get him in Japan and he's studying with Buddhists. How come we don't get him trying to get peace with Buddhism? Because it's not the fucking rubber stamp religion. No, but we don't say Buddhism as a religion. It is, he's doing his martial arts and shit. We're not pushing Buddhism as a religion the same way as putting a Bible in his hand at the end of that episode.
Okay, I was going to say, he is trying to like find himself and yada yada in that episode.
But it's framed differently.
That's fair. That's fine. Yeah. Well, I'll see. I think Rick is ready to join us now that he's jumped in, because we've apparently, like Beetlejuice, you say his name twice and apparently he's appearing. What's up, dude?
What's up,
Rick,
guys?
Good to see you.
My whole setup is in disarray, and I've been watching like this whole time, and like Eddie said, by the third time, I was like, all right, let me hop in and say what's up to the guys. Like I'm watching. I feel like I'm sitting here with you guys.
Well, good. That's the plan of the show. We're
I've
supposed to be like
on mute. I've been on mute the whole time. That's all.
Oh, and TJ, by the way, is watching us right now too.
TJ should have hopped on also.
TJ,
yeah.
Rick, I know you had some comments in our chat about this episode too.
Yeah, and the one before that, you guys, I honestly feel terrible that you guys spent so much time on the worst episode of the season.
I was trying to push past it. I was trying to get out of it.
I feel like a bulk of this episode is you guys going in on the worst episode. But I agree.
Episode 7.
I agree with you guys on everything you said about it. With this one, I mean, Jason's not wrong. This is a heavy-handed episode. I really enjoyed it. I'm with you guys. Nightcrawler's like my favorite character. On the X, he's not, obviously Wolverine's my favorite character on the X-Men, but Nightcrawler's up there with him. And I like that Nightcrawler's like a monk and he has this whole like thing about him. Because in the X-Men, like nobody else really has that about them. They're all like from different places and they're individuals and they have powers that separate them. But none of them really have a religious element to them. And for him, I think the fact that he has blue fur should be enough to distinguish him. But they're like, no, like not just blue fur. You're also like zealot, like, what I'm saying? Like Nightcrawler is, if you're going to have like I don't know, like a targeted Olympics, Nightcrawler checks all the boxes. You know what I mean? Like he's mutant, yeah. He's blue fur, okay. He's this, yeah. Oh, he's also a zealot. Like he's got all these things, like working against him. But I really enjoy, as somebody that was raised in the church, I really enjoyed that he just tried to like preach like everybody be cool. Like he's just, all he's doing is saying the same shit that Professor X has been saying since the first season. You know what I mean? Like
everyone's trying to calm Logan down in various different forms, I guess.
Yeah.
A mind control like type, well, not mind control, but like phase out part of his trauma, and then I was like, hey, try the Bible. But I think in the end, we're just finding out that none of these things ever stop Logan from like doing whatever it is he's gonna do anyway. He's like,
yeah, Logan's a rage monster,
rage Terminator.
In this series, it is what it is. In the next series, though, there's a lot less growling. I think he's come to peace with some portions of his personality.
I got to agree with Rick. He sounds different. We'll get into it, but
we'll get to it.
He definitely sounds different.
We'll get to 97 in a second. I also, I'm gonna just table those comments because I've got some thoughts on that too. But let's get through season 4, episode 9 and 10. Fitzroy travels back in time to May 19th, 1959, to kill Charles with the help of Nimrod and Master Mold again with the Master Mold.
But you guys realize that I believe this takes place before Age of Apocalypse, right? Like this aired before they ran that run in the X-Men.
Yeah.
This is essentially Age of Apocalypse, like the preview.
Yeah. This was like a couple of years before, because I feel like Age of Apocalypse. Well, hold on, no. Age of Apocalypse was 95?
We were in high school, right?
Yeah, but
this is 90.
This is 1995 also. This is 1995 also.
All right.
Yeah.
So these things are written independently of each other then. They like,
I'm sure there was probably like a conversation, but maybe.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting because this clearly wasn't the Age of Apocalypse, but a very interesting take on like what happens if Charles Xavier is killed.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool to see a non-Age of Apocalypse storyline like this.
This is one of the arcs I'll say is one of my bright points of season 4 that I really enjoyed. It's also, you could say, like Terminator like or whatever. I mean, any time travel story when someone's getting assassinated at an early point could be that. But once he dies, there's an alternate present that is formed, and Magneto is leading the X-Men, and Logan and Storm are married in this alternate timeline that's being
on
here.
Schnick.
And they kiss. And they kiss on screen.
They do.
They do, and I'll get to that in a second because there is something here again for the theme that we've discussed the last couple of weeks of the pocket of X-Men fans who are complaining about certain things with X-Men 97. You've been exposed once again, but and I'll explain how in a second. Bishop and his sister travel back to find the X-Men, but they land in this alternate timeline now, and I'll try to follow me because time travel can be very confusing, especially in trying to just explain it like this with no visual aid. They stumble upon the alternate Logan and Storm, so they take the alternate Logan and Storm with them back to 1959 to stop Charles from getting murdered by
back
Nimrod.
in time.
But when they're in 1959 now, mind you, they're at a diner, and Rick had mentioned Logan and Storm are there, and they're holding hands at one point, and the owner says, "No, get that filth out of here. This is disgusting." And what does Storm say? Skin color, bigotry. It's almost quaint, or she says something like very smacking it down like right there, and it's acknowledged again. So again, for those who are crying about like they've just discovered in 2024 that the X-Men are woke. I'm sorry to break it to you, they always have been.
Because
it's okay.
The X-Men have been woke since it was like first debuted. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Since the inception. Since Stan Lee's inception of the X-Men. It's kind of the point of the X-Men.
Stan Lee was like, I got a good idea. Let's put a team together that can be woke. You know what woke is? Excelsior. I'll take care of it.
We find out Stan Lee was a time traveler, and he traveled back from now and created and brought the term into the 60s.
He's a time traveler,
or
a watcher.
He was just a New Yorker.
Or he's a New Yorker like the three of us are. One or the other.
Writing about the shit he saw in the subway.
Basically, they fail and return to the new future and have to go back again where they save Charles. So we see like the other version being, it is very Back to the Future, like where we're seeing like the other thing that just happened played out and they have to interfere and they end up saving the day like that. So eventually, again, Charles is okay and the X-Men and everything exists. But I dug this shit. I thought it was pretty awesome.
My favorite scene is where Bishop starts playing Johnny Be Good, but then he gets in the fucking thrash metal and kicks over an amp and goes, and he looks out, and all the X-Men are looking, Jean Grey's looking at him like, what the fuck was that? And he's like, all right, well, you X-Men don't get it, but the next generation, the X-Mutants, they'll get it.
Well, my favorite one actually was when Bishop goes and he's just like, here's about Ronald Reagan. He's like, Ronald Reagan? The actor?
With his Jerry curl, like
yes,
going
exactly.
all over the place.
So, because I haven't discussed this with you guys on tape, Cable and Bishop, I don't know a lot about Bishop, but I know he looks cool. Cable, I know a lot from X-Force.
Yes.
How do you guys feel about them as characters in this universe?
In the animated universe, I've dug with I like Bishop in his whole thing. I like his whole thing too, his abilities and stuff. What happens with him at the end, the last 4-part thing, I don't love what they did with him in that per se, because I feel like he is in it, but he's not really in it. I like Cable more though as a character. I think he's interesting. There's a lot more to there's a lot more history with Cable, I'll say, than with Bishop. But I do like both characters, though. I think they're both pretty interesting. Jason?
Yeah, same thing. I think I know more about Cable than I do Bishop. So I think I gravitate more toward Cable, but I really like Bishop in this. I was actually very happy that they included him in the credits in '97, which again we'll get to. And I think it's cool that he's like the time travel guy. Yeah. Like, because Cable does lots of shit, right? And we all know eventually Cable is Scott and Jean's kid, right? But Bishop's just a time guy, and I like that. And I like that in this season in particular, this series in particular, that we get his sister. I like that too, because it gives him humanity. It gives us a little insight in his motivation.
Yeah, there is more revealed about him in this season. It was just what they fit. Well, and I'll table that for the 4-episode arc, which I thought was pretty wild. Episodes 11 and 12, Moira and Banshee are back again, and they're basically treating a young boy who is later on revealed to be Moira's son. She had after a
Proteus.
Breakup. Yes, Proteus, who is her son, who is a mutant, whose father apparently is a politician who's running for office in Ireland. And he goes ahead and he wants nothing to do with his son because his son is a mutant. He doesn't want that being around. He didn't want anything to do with his son from like the time he was born, simply because he was a mutant, and definitely wants the public not to know anything about him now because he's running for office. He feels like that will hurt his political chances. Logan has an encounter with him and then is suffering from a PTSD because he ends up, his ability, Proteus's abilities is to like bend things and like change matter and everything like that and twist it around. And he does that to Logan, and Logan has a tough time like fighting him after that. He literally can't even, like, he freezes up when he goes to fight him again. We even see him crying at one point, which is wild that they, again, went there with the character. And basically Moira left Charles for this politician years ago, but ends up finding out about who his father is in the period he was born in, but then wants to cure him and take care of him and, kind of be somewhat of a fatherly figure to him, and sees that he needs his help. So I thought this was a pretty interesting arc. Maybe not like the most exciting per se, but I think it had a lot to do with it. And again, you have the politician whose son is a mutant and is someone different, and they wants nothing to do with him, and the X-Men are helping this person. So again, to tie back to those who were crying about certain things in X-Men 97, wake up. They've always been there. Anything else on his 2-episode arc before we move on?
I want to say that this is possibly, hey, Charles, the worst Irish accent I've ever fucking heard. Like, the accents are terrible. I got to throw that out there. I got to throw some shade. And one thing that I like these episodes. I think it's really interesting. I like the repercussion it has with Wolverine, but I hate the fact that at the end of this episode, like, the father has been a piece of shit the whole time, to the point where Rogue hears him talking about his son and goes, "Professor, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go take a shower. This guy's disgusting." And by the end of this episode, his kid is like, all's forgiven, Pop, and he's like, "Yes, I love you too. Elect me." And it doesn't pay off as something that like was done wrong, and like it kind of is like, yeah, the abusive father made it in the end, and I didn't love that. Just saying. Okay.
I don't disagree with you. I know. I guess for some of the stuff, I was just pointing out that again they are protecting someone to a politician who's pushing his son to the side. Yeah.
No,
but
no,
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Though. The bad guy in the end should have gotten the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, I just think the politician should have got the shit end of the stick because he was being a shithead. And again, that's the ethos of the show. It's not my own politics. If this was called, Republican man, I'd be like, yo, great, this is wonderful. But it's not. It's the X-Men, and so I'm like, the ethos of the show is like, this guy should have gotten some comeuppance, and he winds up being heroic because at the last minute he acknowledged he had a son that was different.
Episode 13, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have arrived. Well, they were briefly mentioned in the X Factor episode previously, but they find out about their biological parents, and this are not the ones that they thought they had. And yes, they basically find out Magneto is their father, and they lure him into this trap that's there. It's also Logan is sent by Charles because Magneto breaks into the mansion and is looking for Charles's help in this because he feels like there is a trap. But he does tell Charles, I know it's a trap. Don't send anyone. But he's even still like, Logan, go watch after him and do what you got to do. So Logan reluctantly does that. And they end up finding out they're on this colony where the High Evolutionary is there. Yes, for those who had mentioned, who remember, he is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He's building his whole colony there with the animal type, humanoids and stuff like that are going on there. There are these, he traps them in this colony for further experiments. And Logan is briefly turned into a wolf at one point, and he has to battle out of that as well. It's a little wonky there. But I think cool episode, and the fact that we get the reveal of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Magneto connection. That was my takeaway. And it was cool to see a version of the High Evolutionary many years before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
This is Samuel Essex, right?
What was that?
This High Evolutionary, is this Samuel Essex or no?
Yes.
This character is really, really confusing. Because, I mean, this character, like, he is who he is. Like, his name details what he's working towards. But is it, like, to live forever? Or is it to, like, advance society?
I think he wants to advance society in his own version, in his own image.
So he feels like he needs to live forever to do it.
Essentially, yes.
This guy is Sisyphus. Like, he's pushing the boulder up the mountain, and the X-Men are the fucking mountain. Pushing it right back against it. He's not trying to hurt humanity. He's trying to advance it.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Mr. Sinister is trying to end everything.
Well, I was going to say, let me correct myself briefly. You meant Nathaniel Essex.
Yes.
That's Mr. Sinister. That's not High Evolutionary.
All right, then I take all that back.
Okay.
But I think we'd all agree Mr. Sinister is
trying to end the world. That guy's trying to end the world.
Yeah, let me correct myself briefly on that. I'm sorry. No, Nathaniel Essex is Mr. Sinister. They do have somewhat similar things. High Evolutionary.
Yeah,
they both want to create a world in their own image, in their own view, I guess, if you want to say, a perfect society that they think is perfect.
Yeah, High Evolutionary just has a terrible voice.
Yeah, it's not great.
Because he's so high.
Episode 14, Nightcrawler is returned. He seeks out his mother, who is being used as bait by the Friends of Humanity, another one of our buddies that are back. And Creed is shamed by he's shamed away by the Friends of Humanity. And by the way, the Friends of Humanity, the higher ups, are wearing fucking hoods. And they've got armbands. I mean, if you can't tell me who you're trying to say who the Friends of Humanity are, I mean, you really, you're talking about heavy-handed. This was really telling you, like, you're getting beat with a mallet. Like, the fucking Friends of Humanity are white supremacists, you assholes.
And yet people
Am I
are
wrong?
complaining it's just now getting woke.
Yeah.
They're just missing the Confederate flags. It's just...
I mean, they've gotten everything. I mean, it really is in this. And so Creed is the guy who we see previously running the Friends of Humanity. Apparently, he answers to someone now. And then it's also revealed in this episode. There's a lot of family drama that gets revealed in this season. That's like I feel like that was almost like the centerpiece of this season was let's reveal all the drama and connections here. So Creed is Sabretooth's son in this that's here. So he is not a mutant himself, but his father is, but he has mutant blood in him. So they even tell him that he's not pure blood, that he's like polluted blood. And again, beating you over the fucking head with it. Like if you didn't get it by now, that's who the hell the Friends of Humanity are. So just accept it, man. Rogue, Logan, and Jubilee help Nightcrawler, and it's revealed that Mystique is the birth mother of Creed as well. So Sabretooth, Mystique got it on and had the guy who's running the Friends of Humanity and also Nightcrawler. He is also, like, he's not Sabretooth, but Mystique is also his mother. That is revealed in this. And yes, Rogue is not the biological daughter of Mystique, but more of like an adoptive mother that's there. So Mystique, Mama Mystique, many children within the X-Men animated universe.
Which I'm okay with, but guys, I think the real takeaway here is Sabretooth fucked Mystique.
Yes.
That's the takeaway. Like raw dog, no contraception, clearly, because she got pregnant. I don't know. I'm disturbed by this. I'm disturbed.
Right. Jason, what form was she in when this happened?
Exactly. That's my question. That's why
She
I'm
was
so
not regular Blue Mystique that we're used to.
I don't know. If that's Sabretooth's thing, maybe he's into it. I don't know.
I think she was Rebecca Romaine.
Maybe she could put it this way. You want to know what's crazy? She could form whoever the hell Sabretooth wanted her to be. Or look like at that point, apparently.
So she was Logan, is what you're saying.
Maybe.
But guys,
if that's what his jam is, then so be it.
But wait, the question for me isn't how did she get Sabretooth to have sex with her? It's clear she's hot, even if she's blue. I mean, the question is, why did she have sex with Sabretooth?
I mean, he's got that fucking, like, ultra machismo thing about him. For me, Sabretooth has always been Razor Ramon and, like, a fucking panther suit, like a lion suit.
I didn't see that one coming.
Think about it. Like,
I thought about that.
Sabretooth doing the fucking, like, like
the toothpick and stuff and just like throws it at Logan and shit.
That's
and it's like,
in my mind, that's how I've always envisioned Sabretooth.
I have no doubt.
Sabretooth.
I have no doubt about it. Like, this is how you envision Sabretooth. So Nightcrawler can
raise the Ramon entrance music, everything.
Nightcrawler confronts Mystique and wants to know why she abandoned him, and he chooses to pray for her. That's his thing. He doesn't get like angry. Yeah, I agree. That was actually really cool. And Creed is dropped off, by the way, at the end of this to his father on Sabretooth's doorstep, and you can tell like he's gonna fuck him up now. Like it was just like it was. This is a pretty wild episode. Episode 15, we get a lot of Logan in Japan. For those who are dig that kind of line of the Wolverine solo run, he quits the team and heads back to the Ministry in Japan. He protects it from a protection racket that's led by Silver Samurai. Yeah, that part I found to be a little bit bizarre.
Silver Samurai is amazing.
Isn't Silver Samurai a good guy? I thought he was.
No, he's a villain.
He was a terror to Spider-Man in the 60s and 70s. And the Black Widow.
I did not realize that.
And Jubilee tracks him down to Japan and actually is the only other X-Men to appear in this episode to kind of have Wolverine's back in Japan while he's fighting off Silver Samurai.
Dude, that's why she was gone for so long, because she had to fly to Japan, which it's a long flight. I've done it. and then she had time to fucking look for Logan, and then she had to fly back. That's why she was gone for most of the season. It was the Japan flight.
That makes sense. Checks the box. Episode 16, Logan discovers many of his memories were staged while he was in the Weapon X project, along with Silver Fox, Maverick, and Sabretooth. And Sabretooth deals with childhood abuse.
I actually love this episode because it is based on a Wolverine issue that I own.
Nice.
Where like they set up a false memories, and it's like I don't remember Silver Fox in it, but it's him and Sabretooth, and it's one of those things why I love the Wolverine comics in the 90s, because it was like they know each other. What's the connection? Keep reading and you'll find out. And that's why I read, and it was one of those things like, oh my god, they were brothers. Oh no, that was fabricated memories. And so that's why I love this episode.
And they uncover the truth, and they battle these robots. There's two of them named Talos, which I thought was kind of interesting. Sorry, my Marvel is over here. She's I don't know. She heard the yelling.
Since you're mentioning those types of names, Garrick, isn't that the name of the Skrull from Secret Wars?
From Secret Invasion.
Right.
Talos and Garrick, I guess, yeah, they might be names reused. I don't know if there's a connection or not. I don't believe there is. But I do find it interesting now that we're looking back and we've had them.
That we're like seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Episode 17 apparently is one that some people give a lot of shit for. It's Have a Very Morlock Christmas. It's the Christmas episode that the X-Men did.
Oh, God, this was terrible. Yeah, I hated this.
The X-Men celebrate Christmas when Jubilee takes Storm and Logan for last-minute Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve. They do go to Rockefeller Center. They run into the Morlocks there that are trying to get medical supplies for Leech. Logan transfers his blood to save Leech's life. When Jubilee gives her gifts to the Morlocks' children, Jean and Gambit are arguing over food prep, apparently, throughout most of that episode as they're stuck in the mansion. And, Charles is there, and he just kind of wanted them to have, like, a normal Christmas, but then shit hit the fan, and so be it. I think it has some kind of, like... This is an episode, like, I wouldn't... If I was creating, like, the Marvel Christmas playlist, I would throw this one on. It's whatever. It's not the greatest episode, though, by any stretch of the imagination. This is definitely just, hey, let's check the box of a Christmas episode. But actually, wait, there is one thing that did.
The Star Wars. It's better than the Star Wars Christmas.
Yes, the holiday episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
It's better than that. So
there is one big thing that does come out of this, though, and I will say is besides Jubilee learning like the meaning of Christmas and stuff and like that and stuff, that Storm hands over their whole thing with the Morlocks. She does relinquish being the leader and gives it to Callisto.
That for me was the only thing that was worthwhile in this episode. I just felt it was it's not even the Christmas thing that bothered me. I don't care about that.
No, you've liked
it's just stuff. Yeah, I do. It's just that it just seemed kind of lazy. Again, like like for one thing, Jean Grey and Gambit arguing and Jean saying, "Get the swamp rat out of here." It was like, is that Jean Grey? Because that doesn't sound like her. She's not that combative, right? That's the first thing for me. The fact that like we get Leech is sick halfway through the episode and then it's resolved like that. And then the fact that, I love the idea of an episode with Storm gives Callisto back the reins. And I love the idea of Storm having to face the fact that she's been a shitty leader to the Morlocks because she ignores them. But like for that to happen in the last 5 minutes of this Christmas episode robs that storyline of like its power. And I wish the episode was about that.
Yeah, this could have been like two different episodes. You could have like did a better Christmas episode here.
Right.
I see what they were trying to accomplish with it, but it just comes off. I agree with you. It's a little lazy here, and definitely one of the weaker episodes. It's still not episode 7. So episode 7 is the devil. But, like, come on,
it's comparable to me.
Hey, this has the Storm Callisto thing. Episode 7 has nothing. Nothing. Zero. Zilch.
Fair enough. The Big O. Fair enough.
So the last 4 episodes are an arc that's tied together because it's a 4-part like mini series within it. Cable tries to end Apocalypse in his Lazarus chamber when he steals his computer and then is able to time travel. Apocalypse discovers the axis of time where he can exist outside of time, where he doesn't need the Lazarus chamber. And then he starts collecting all the psychics around and basically wants to destroy time itself by gathering these psychics. And he wants to rule, he wants to build his own universe outside of time where he's unchallenged. And that's basically his whole jam that's here. He gets Sinister to help him with his Nasty Boys, who I still think are a lame group of characters.
Lame.
They suck. Mystique, Sabretooth, and Magneto, but he tricks Magneto into helping him by saying that he was going to help him resurrect his wife, which I thought was interesting.
But what we find out is he doesn't really, because Magneto...
Yeah. He catches on fast.
Yeah.
Basically, also, Jean and Scott are getting married or trying to get married again. And fucking Sinister keeps breaking this shit up all the time and kidnaps Jean, but leaves Scott. They try to figure out why the hell that is. It was because Scott is not a psychic this time. Because there's a slightly different plan. But Sinister always wants to get one of them. But they do get Charles in a battle back in the past because they do redirect and they go back to the past to try to take out the Lazarus chamber, and it's in the beginning. So their whole thing is, hey, if he has no Lazarus chamber ever, Apocalypse ceases to exist. Then he's like, fuck you guys, because I exist out of time. I don't need this Lazarus chamber, which comes back to bite him in the ass at the end, because once he's defeated and he is thrown back into time, he's going to need that Lazarus chamber again, which I'm sure he'll find some way season 5 to get it back, because Apocalypse is inevitable. Come on, we both know that's going to be some shit that'll come.
Of course, no, I know.
Psylocke makes her debut in this because she's one of the psychics that are kidnapped, so we get her introduction, which I thought was kind of cool.
I think
Bishop
her facing off against Warren was awesome.
That was cool. Her and Archangel have a battle, and that is pretty badass because she's trying to go ahead and rob him, and that's where we meet her. Bishop is caught outside of time through this whole thing, is stuck on this fucking bridge with this really annoying character who's bouncing around. What is that?
This could have
4 episodes.
Been a flawless arc of 4 episodes, and the only thing that keeps it being from a flawless arc is this character. He's so annoying. It's clearly like, oh God, right, we have to get kids watching this, so let's put an obnoxious kid character in this very heavy, deep X-Men fucking arc where everyone's gonna die. It's like, what? And he's like,
he's the janitor of outside of time, basically. The axis of time.
Garbage.
It's so stupid.
Such garbage.
Magneto and Logan do save each other at different points, and they do have this exchange that's there of look who's saving who and stuff, because they're reluctantly doing that. I thought that was cool. Oh yeah, what am I?
What am I, Charles Xavier? And then he saves him, and what am I, an X-Men? Awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And then Magneto turns against Apocalypse once he learns his real plan, and psychics are freed, and they restore, and they send Apocalypse back in time, and there's basically no chamber. And that's where it is. It kind of felt like one of those X-Men annual things or something like that, right?
You guys, by the way, almost got a text halfway through me watching it. Bullshit. I call bullshit. Magneto would never fucking back Apocalypse in this insane scheme. And then when we get to the part, and this would stop the text because it was almost happening, we get to that part where Magneto gets Apocalypse to tell him his plan. He goes, you didn't tell me this. And Apocalypse like, yeah, I lied to you, bitch. And we saw him do this before with the Landria and the Shi'ar. And he's like, yeah, but you didn't fool me. And Mystique is helping him. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense. And he actually says later, yeah, I knew something was up, so I infiltrated, and I wanted to kill Apocalypse once I figured out what he was doing. I'm like, this is Magneto. And I appreciate the show's understanding of this character.
Absolutely. And especially with what we're about to get to next. That's some further understanding. So I would say season 4, the weakest of the 4 so far, but it's not total garbage. There's some garbage in there. There's also some awesome shit, more good than bad. So if you're doing a rewatch, season 4 still has some shit to bring. Plus, again, we don't know what to call this.
It's just too long.
No, it is. But again, and Rick, I don't advocate for this. There are some episodes you can't skip in this. The last 4 part, no, that's not one of them.
Yeah, it's
you can
great.
Skip some shit. Like episode 7, you can skip. Absolutely.
Jason, I was gonna say to your point about with Magneto with his like switching sides thing, is when I saw that, I took it as him being somebody. Like sometimes people say something and then everybody laughs because it sounds ironic, and then they act like they meant to say it that way. Like, that's how I took it there. I thought it was really weird Magneto was with them, but I feel like he had to also change his mind to turn on the other bad guys.
I do agree.
Like, he was like, if we're not going to do this, then I'm against you. Like,
yes. Well, if you're trying to build a world outside of time, then fuck yourself.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Magneto was 100% on board for let's rewrite history and have mutants in charge, because that is what he does. However, he was not on board for killing a whole bunch of innocent people, and that's what he says. And that's the thing, is I also want to say that in Magneto's perfect world where mutants are in charge, I don't think humans are enslaved. They're just not persecuted.
So
if we go with the enlightened Charles Xavier Magneto,
I want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say like.
No, I was gonna say I want to support what you're saying. With in the future, Jean won't read his mind.
Well, how about
because
this?
He had to become that person that you're talking about.
Yeah,
let's get to
the
it.
guy that would not enslave people.
Well, let's get to it because we're going to do that. So,
all right.
Any final thoughts on season 4? Any final thoughts on season 4 before we move on?
It's got about 4 filler episodes. It's still fantastic. Watch it.
Absolutely,
a lot happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool shit.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the main event then of the week, which is X-Men 97 episodes 1 and 2, the 2-part series premiere that dropped on Wednesday on Disney Plus. Going to drop that spoiler ticker on the bottom just in case you have not watched X-Men 97 yet. Boy, you are missing out. Get on that shit ASAP. So, you have been warned. There it is. I guess the brief overall thoughts on this thing before we start diving into details. I mean, no secret, I fucking adored this thing. Honestly, it was absolutely phenomenal for me, especially doing the rewatch of the original series and seeing it through adult eyes now. And Rick and I chatted about this yesterday. As I mentioned, I was a few car bombs in, and we had a nice discussion about the X-Men animated series. Seeing it through adult eyes is a little bit different, and the comparison here, this seems so far like a flawless continuation. Masters of the Universe, Revolution, and Revelation were tasked with the same thing, but they are following up a series created to sell toys. And right, X-Men, as we're rediscovering, had something to say and had a lot to say. It wasn't just like a toy commercial. So the evolution of the tone of X-Men 97 so far, I think, is genius, because like Masters of the Universe, the reason I brought it up is that you're attracting the fan. Besides new fans, you're attracting fans like us who grew up and saw these things as teenagers, right, or young and even younger, and are now watching it as adults. And I think they do a great job at slightly tweaking it to be slightly more adult into it, while still not losing the soul and the essence of what X-Men the animated series is. And I think the way it kicks off, the way that, and I knew that my envisioning of their opening of the intro was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be an updated version of the original intro. They weren't going to really change too much. And man, never skip it. It says skip intro. Say fuck no. You watch it every time. Jason, what were your thoughts on X-Men 97 so far?
Overall, I loved it. I thought so talking about the intro, I sat down and I watched it because sometimes I have to watch stuff while I'm doing other things because I'm just very busy. But this made a point to sit down, just watch and do nothing else. I like that the intro, you're right. It captures the essence of the original. It adds to it. I think it actually takes some of the essence of the alternate intro that we talked about. Right.
Well,
I think in the first run, right? Because there's two intros. There's like the more techno one, and there's the one that we all know and love. And I think it takes some of the aspects of the visuals from both of them. I love that it adds in Morph and adds in Bishop because they are. I think both of those characters exist because of this show. Not to say that they were created for the show, but that's how they're known.
Morph was created.
Oh, Morph was created for this show. Yeah, that's right. Good point. And I think, I really enjoyed it. I think overall there are some changes in the voices, but you got to get over that. It's decades later, and it's a fucking cartoon. You either lock in and like it or you don't. And if the voices are going to sway you, then you got to get over that. But I agree with you that I think it really does capture the essence of the original, and in particular with Beast, right? Because I love hate Beast because I am Beast, and I hate that about myself, right? But if I were an X-Men, I would be Beast. But I was like, all right, let me see how many things he quotes and how obnoxious he can get. And he fucking does it, right? You get it in this, like, what's a quote, Mark Twain? And I'm like, yes, they knew the fucking assignment. They watched the old show. That's my thoughts.
Rick?
No, I'm with you guys. It's a continuation of the original with polished up graphics.
Yeah.
You know, my only complaint about the original is the wonky graphics. And they polished them up and they standardized them and they made them look great. But like Jason said, it's like, oh God, how many times haven't we seen films where the guys didn't even watch the source material or read the source material, and they just come out and they produce a product and they slap a sticker on it, and that's what it's supposed to be. Like here, they definitely put the MCU attention to detail to the show in its entirety, from the opening to the ending credits where they have the people spinning around.
Yeah, they did. I thought that was awesome. That was another great detail. And for episode 2, I'm not going to get into details of, but I hope you didn't skip intro on episode 2 because they do change it already. They update it based on the story.
Another MCU thing.
Jason, I was waiting to see if Jason, did you skip intro on episode 2?
I did skip intro. Intro. Yeah. Who they update it with?
Magneto is in it. And
that's what I figured.
Magneto, and then there's also some other graphics with Bishop. Dark Phoenix is involved. Actually, Storm defeating Callisto is in that, which that'll be our opening next week. And yeah, okay. I'm curious to see.
Now I know I can't skip intro.
And the way that they put it, the way that they do it with Magneto, I know it was a slight twist of the knife to the fans because of what happens at the end of episode 1. And it was like, no, he's ahead of Cyclops in the order of the X-Men. And I was like, that's like throwing a little salt in the wound right there. And I was all for it. I was all for it. All right, so episode 1, things that I had clocked. There's a Crazy Eddie.
Yes.
Yep. You saw that, right? I thought that was so awesome that was there. For those who know, Crazy Eddie was a electronics store in New York during the 90s. So I thought that
Where
was
prices
pretty
were
cool.
insane.
That's what I heard.
Do you know what that guy was doing?
Some insane
Embezzling.
shit.
Like his inventory was like empty boxes with bricks in it.
It's not great. It's not.
He was scamming.
He was
everyone.
embezzling money.
Yeah.
Worth
the watch
I
on
think
YouTube.
he tried to flee, right? Didn't he try to flee and then he was caught and brought back?
Worth a watch on YouTube. Google Crazy Eddie. It's an interesting story.
Agreed.
So,
it's a good rabbit hole to go down.
We also find out very quickly that Gyrick went ahead and killed Charles Xavier. He shot him, and that's where it is. And I know the X-Men episode season 5 leaves off where Elandra takes him to the Shi'ar, but like again, this is supposedly months later and everything like that, and where it picks up. So I'm curious to know about how they're going to address that over time. But this is where we get in episode 1. Our buddies, the Friends of Humanity, are back. They're rounding out a character who will be Sunspot as once he becomes.
I was going to say that's Sunspot, right?
It's 100% Sunspot.
Yeah.
Yep.
But these dudes are armed with Sentinel tech now, so they've definitely upgraded their shit. And there's this warehouse battle that, dude, Cyclops has got him and Storm get their fucking due in these 2 episodes like never before, at least in the animated or even in the actual live action movies. Because Cyclops comes in and kicks ass, hand-to-hand combat style. He's like moving around, shooting the optic blast and everything, bouncing around and stuff. And he's Sunspot's even like, wait, are you the good guy? And Scott, like, so confidently is like, yeah, we're definitely the good guys.
Yeah. He also has a great moment where the bad guys get on top of him for a second, and they go, "Oh yeah, take this Muni's glasses." It's like, no, please don't. And they take his glasses, and he go, and he opens his eyes and fucking blasts him.
I was wondering why. Like, did they not do their homework when they thought, let's like fuck with the X-Men?
Well,
like, why would they take Cyclops' glasses off?
Well, they were probably saying that. They were probably thinking they were going to disable him so he couldn't like see or anything. But no, well, because they
should know that they should have a little bit of homework on Cyclops.
I don't know.
Well, I'll say in their defense, they didn't know. We didn't see Cyclops go hand-to-hand battle and fuck dudes up like he does in this.
No, not prior.
No, not prior.
Also,
so maybe they saw it. Maybe they watched the animated series and saw that as well.
And Rick, to be honest, one mutant is, they're all the same to these people, right? You think they're doing research? They don't look at them as individuals.
Well, and that's their downfall.
Yes. But in that scene, though, that you're talking about, Jason, in that warehouse scene, they do a callback to the first episode of the animated series. Because when he takes off the things and he's like, "Oh, please, I surrender," and he does the whole Wayne's World not, and he optic blast him, which I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved
that was awesome. That was awesome.
Did you guys like the Friends of Humanity Mega Man guns?
Yeah, the Sentinel things.
I like the Mega Man guns. They're kind of cool.
Yeah, they were like stepping their game up.
There's a bunch of stormtroopers shooting.
So then we get a reintroduction of the team and stuff. We find out Jean is pregnant in this episode when we first meet her. And that's when we get the introduction. We get to see Rogue for the first time. And Rick, I will agree with your text on our group text, a little behind the thing, where Rogue's voice is the same voice actress, but you can tell she's aged a bit.
That's the same voice actress?
Same exact voice actress, but now. Okay. And I feel like, though, it didn't take me out of it, but I feel like there's certain things she says that do sound exactly the same, but then certain times not so much. Like, it fluctuates a little bit. But whatever. I think it was cool that they got her back.
People age. That's it. Yeah. People age. What are you going to do? It's decades later. I didn't think it was the same voice actress. I was kind of like, I don't really love the voice, but whatever. Now that I know it's her, especially, people age. What are you going to do?
So also apparently it was came out that one of Kevin Feige's things that he wanted back before green lighting this thing was we got to get the rights to the theme song and the intro song, and then we got to get as many of the voice actors back as we can, the OG cast. So I'll let it go. It's fine. It's not that serious.
No, absolutely.
So then apparently Gene and Scott are having this conversation about her being pregnant and consider leaving the team so they can raise their child to not with the whole thing. So they have a back and forth conversation. Scott points out that they were Charles's first students, so maybe not so much. But then, of course, the rest of the team's playing basketball in the yard, and Roberto, who is Sunspot, bounces and disappears, and they have to go find him. So they try to track him down to this club. Very much kind of like what I loved about this is it was also a callback where Jubilee that was Jubilee in the beginning of the series the first time, and now she's kind of like the roles are reversed. Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and we get that Jubilee dancing with the fireworks thing in the club and stuff like that. Cool. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. We get Morph, who's going ahead and bouncing around and changing to Gene and messing with Logan again about how you get to watch mine and Scott's beautiful existence right in front of you while you're on the sidelines. That Morph really knows how to really push the buttons to really piss somebody off when he wants to. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Morph, right? Like he's always pushing buttons. Like we see him always like he's Gene, he's this, he's that, and so I think it's cool. But let me ask you this: what do you think about his new look?
Oh, with the mask that he pulls down sometimes.
Yeah, like
that's what it is. Apparently,
it's a mask. Yeah, but in the original, he was like a guy, and he had the blacker hair. But what do you think of the new look? Do you guys like it or not?
I mean, when he doesn't have the mask on, or what? I'm sorry. Like I know they mentioned he was non-binary, so when they have the mask on, then I don't care. It's fine. I actually thought having the mask at times when in battle kind of makes sense that they can disguise and not know who the person is that you're fighting. So I kind of think it makes sense. It's not like that's the face now in general. Right. Like they do have like the update. The art is updated. So it's still kind of like the same concept of the face and everything. Just decides to pull a mask down on occasion when needed.
I think it was strange because he's a shapeshifter, and the only other shapeshifter we have is Mystique. Her general form is unique. She's blue. His general form in the original series is just like a very generic guy. He's got like a generic X-Men uniform with a generic haircut and like a very normal face. Other than when he's like zombie Morph, other than when he first came back and he was all weird looking.
Yeah.
He's a very generic looking character. He looks like a created character.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like they took a created character, a generic character, and then they gave him an even more generic face that they don't even have to sculpt. It's like,
well, but no, that's not.
It's like your jersey number could be number 0 or number 00. Like,
well, I will say no, but that's not the face all the time. The face does return back to the normal form that we're used to when it's just hanging out and stuff like that. Otherwise, I do feel like it's more of a mask because even in the intro we see Morph without the mask, and all of a sudden the mask comes down, and then he goes to fight and stuff. So whatever. I mean, yeah, I did think that based on the promo stuff, I thought it was going to be just that mask-looking face all the time, but apparently it's not. It's just when needed. So whatever.
When he's in public, he's not really trying to draw attention, other than his weird ass outfit.
Well, he has the blue and yellow X-Men with the brown jacket that apparently Rogue and Scott and Morph are the only ones who have this brown X-Men jacket. Because if you're season 3, Scott wears that X-Men jacket out of nowhere and then suddenly it disappears again. Maybe they all get it when they join the school and it's part of like the welcome swag X-Men package.
And
Here,
after a while,
here's your brown, here's your brown
welcome
thing.
swag.
Yeah, here's your X-Men mug. Here's your notebook that you get with the swag package.
Beautiful.
Okay, there you go. You can get this.
Do I get an X-Men pen? Can I get an X-Men pen, please?
Oh, wait a second. You do, because I have the X-Men pen that came with the book. There it is. It has Wolverine on it for some bizarre reason. But you're an X-Men now, so you get to have this pen.
You turn it upside down, his uniform changes.
Yes.
I'm going to throw this question out to you, and then I will answer it, but none of you have to answer it, but you can think about it. X-Men swag based on a character. Mine, Wolverine cutlery.
Okay. Cyclops sunglasses?
Yeah, oh, yeah, Cyclops Ray-Bans? Oh, yes. That's hot.
I would rock that. I would rock that now if they had it. All right.
That's pretty good.
So they basically have to go ahead and they decide that, they want to find Trask, and they decide that they got to go ahead and track down Garrick here. So they go to Garrick in prison, and there's this whole exchange with him and Scott, and Scott's offered him a 10 years off his life sentence, because that's what he was authorized to do. And he's pressing Scott's buttons. He's like telling him, hey, you're not Charles and stuff like that. There's one thing I do know, you're not Charles Xavier. And Scott pushes, he kind of jumps a minute. And he's like, yeah, I'm not Charles. He would be kind. He would be understanding and stuff. But he's like, well, what are you supposed to do? And he's like, well, you don't have to worry about me, but my wife. And then Jean is interrogating him with Cerebro and really fucking with him about a lot of this, until she actually starts getting visions of Master Mold and stuff. And I guess that's what she sees in his mind. And she's got like the baby who will be Cable, that gets revealed in episode 2.
Right.
But that's what she gets. So she gets kind of freaked out by that. But then they find the location. They have to go and take down Trask. They fly out there, and this leads to a fucking phenomenal battle scene, which was part of the clip that they released in the promo recently, where the X-Men are there, they're fighting Master Mold, they're fighting Trask, and they're fighting all these Sentinels. And that's when we get some of the fucking coolest shit. Because as the Blackbird explodes and they're falling out of the sky, Morph changes into Archangel and flies and helps them pick up people. And Rogue is getting people. But fucking Cyclops is like, no, I'm going to see you guys on the way down. And he uses his optic blast to fucking fall, to brace his fall, and does the ultimate superhero landing.
I've never seen him do that before.
Neither have I. And neither have I, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was just adding more to the Cyclops badass.
Him and I'm like, what the fuck is he planning on doing?
Yeah. I thought he was going to break out the brown jacket for a minute and maybe kind of like, that was cool.
Superhero landing.
And they have the battle there. And I think at one point during the battle, some of the cool shit we see that scene that was in the trailer where Gambit charges up Logan's claws, which is, and he's like riding Wolverine's back and everything, and he charges up his claws. You see they get the genetic charge and they fucking rip ass on this thing. And then when the team is there, you hear the Sentinels calling out for an Omega level threat after Scott says, give them the forecast. And Storm shows up out of the freaking night sky and everything. There's like thunder and stuff. And she destroys the whole Sentinels that are there. Like, dude, she is just like super leveled up, and it's pretty badass, man.
That was pretty awesome.
So after that battle, they eventually go back to the mansion. Looks like they're playing basketball again. And then an alarm goes off that's in there. And it says that somebody's in the library that's there. The team goes in and they find Magneto there, who is basically reading through the will and testament of Charles Xavier and we find out that Magneto, he left everything to Magneto, and that's where the first episode ends. And I honestly will say, I wish, I understand why this was in the trailer, but I kind of wish it wasn't. Because if I didn't know that was coming, man, that would have been a jaw-dropping episode, for into the first episode.
It didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not upset, but I kind of
but I'm saying, like, even with it not being in the trailer, we had to assume it was going to happen if Charles wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, and this has happened in the comics before, so
we've already seen it in the comics.
Yeah. So episode 2 picks up where Charles that's what we had mentioned, there's the new opening and stuff that's there, and Magneto is leading the team. Like, they're dealing with this whole thing, and Cyclops and Jean are having discussions, like, and that's a lot of episode 2 where Scott is trying to deal with the fact that, did Charles not trust me? Did he not think I was the leader that maybe, he was propping me up to be, which is an understandable thought. And
of course,
there's a whole wrestling with, like, did Charles make a mistake here? Like, what was this whole thing about? And and Eric is left everything. There's also a thing, though, where Magneto's going around saving people left and right, and the government catches on to this apparently and tell them, hey, you got to answer for your crimes, by the way, because you're in our eyes, you're like, you've been charged with crimes. You have to, like, face the music at some point, and he ends up turning himself over to have this trial that is there, and it plays out throughout a lot of the episode. Rick, I'm sorry, you had something to say.
No, I was agreeing with you. The only thing I'd probably add to that would be when Magneto shows up, I'm not sure that kicks in Scott's, like, imposter syndrome, and
no, not instantly. Like, yeah,
because he's constantly fucking contradicted by Wolverine.
Yeah,
Wolverine's constantly fucking, like, poking at him and poking at him and poking at him. If Scott can deal with Wolverine all the time, he can fucking deal with Magneto, who's never around, showing up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's well. I guess the only thing I would say that I think there's difference there is because, like, at least the way that I've seen it, and it happens in episode 1, where Logan and Scott's relationship, I always feel, is kind of like somewhat of a older brother, little brother type thing, where they kind of just, like, go at each other. But I think in the end, because we've seen moments where Logan is okay with Scott.
Logan wants his girl, dude.
No, he does, but I think at this point in the series, though, it's not like it was before. Like, he's like, hey, I've kind of, like, reserved to the fact that they're married now, they're having a child and stuff, but don't slip up. Like, don't slip up, treat her fucking right. Like, do your thing. Like, he's accepted that to an extent. Plus, we've also got a lot of Logan's backstory and his exes that he keeps running. Him and Charles, with the exes we keep running into in his animated series, are plentiful. So it's not like he couldn't, because he sees Lady Deathstrike at some point. Then in Japan there's another one and stuff. So it does happen. And I think Scott's issue with the Magneto thing, though, is that you would have kind of imagined that in the will, you would have assumed everything was going to be left to Scott, or at least that Scott and Jean together, being that they're his first students. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they understand that Charles's relationship with Eric is what it is, but this is different. Like, you gave over the team, everything, the mansion, everything, to someone who is your arch nemesis. I mean, they do fight him repeatedly in things. And they also know, what I think is also interesting is, again, coming from Scott's perspective, this is a guy that Charles knows is that the reason we bump heads is because of the ideology. Like, will he turn the X-Men over to say, no, now you're going to do it my way? and we're gonna go ahead and do it like with brutal, blunt force, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I think Scott's
Right.
dealing with in this whole thing. Jason, anything to add with that?
Yeah, no, I think the fact is it's an ideological, as you said, it's an ideological mashup. And also I think the fact that Magneto is the villain, but he's also very clearly trying to make restitution, right?
Well, yeah,
And
but I'm talking about Scott's vision in the beginning. What he's seeing is why he feels a certain way. Not throughout the episode. No, throughout the episode.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, he's justified because this is their villain. This is the guy they fight. I mean, I think they even say that. Like, yeah, we fought a bunch of times. So, yeah, Scott is 100% justified in his thoughts. But again, I think by the end of this episode, he realizes because like Magneto says to him, "Well, you're starting to realize something that I realized, and it was hard. Charles can be wrong." And that's what these episodes are trying to prove or disprove. And by the end of them, it disproves it for Scott. But it's interesting.
No, the drama is really dialed up in episode 2 versus episode 1, right? So we get the trial of Magneto. There's a lot of that going on there. There is the Friends of Humanity catch wind of this whole thing, and they see that Magneto's on trial and he's getting due process. They're not having it. And the term is used very clearly that an insurrection is being led to this court, and that's going to be there. All right, so they're not really sugarcoating that whatsoever. And Magneto, to show everything, he takes the people that are on trial with him, he protects them and puts them in one of his, like magnetic fields, and floats them away and saves them. So the world's kind of like can see that that's what's going on here as well. And at the same time, the X-Men are protecting him. They're protecting Magneto, and they realize that this is like a clashing of things, everything they've done since their inception. So I think that's really interesting. That's there as well. And what else? Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it's also really interesting that it's in this episode we realize that why Xavier left this to Magneto, right? Because that's the big question. Why? Why Magneto? Why? Like, he's our enemy. But the fact is, Xavier and Magneto are friends. And that's even addressed in these 2 episodes. Yeah, we're friends. We didn't see ideologically, but they've always been friends, right? They've fought together when they can. They only fight against each other when they have to. This is Charles going, I can save you, Magneto. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is stuff that has been in the comics, right? Like, this is why at some point Magneto takes over the X-Men. I think it's brilliant. And it's brilliant the way that they are, like, peppering it in and bringing it in and sort of, like, making us all go, okay, well, why is he doing this? And the fact is, it inspires him as a character to be better, because by the end of this, he has a chance to crush everyone who fucked them over. And by the end of this, Storm loses her power. It really does set us up for what's coming in the next couple of episodes. And he even says, I'd kill you normally, but I can't. And it's a character exploration. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, so there was the other big thing that happens here was during this whole, case that's going down here. All right, the whole trial of Magneto. That there's an assassin that shows up who's going ahead and trying to go ahead and take out Magneto with one shot of a bullet, but that bullet doesn't. It basically permanently ends that person's powers if it's shot by a mutant.
Yep.
Storm takes a bullet for Magneto in this, and she's the one who ends up like losing her powers. And by the end of it, she leaves the team because she feels like she's no longer.
This happened to her in the comic books.
Yes.
And Forge helped her regain her powers.
Yeah, which I wonder
So
if
I'm
that's where
wondering
they're
if
going
he's
with
going to
this.
go back to wherever, and they're going to go with that storyline or what.
Yeah, which we've seen Forge multiple times in the 4 seasons of the original series,
Yep.
so far. So he's definitely been set up.
Mhm.
But I thought that was interesting too, how she kind of felt like she had to leave her family because she doesn't have her powers anymore. She almost like she wasn't really part of them. So I found that to be really interesting. They had done that, and as this whole like epilogue is happening at the end of episode 2, we also get a reveal here of Rogue and Magneto having a previous relationship,
Wow.
which has not been mentioned in the animated series so far. And the triangle, there's a crazy heated love triangle with Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto forming now too, which I've also seen some fans taking an issue with. Once again, read a comic. It's there. There's
Yeah.
various issues of this. This is like common knowledge. Like, stop.
Yeah.
You're embarrassing yourself.
And here's the thing. I'm a person who doesn't love that Rogue and Magneto were a thing. They hook up, they whatever. But it's there. Rogue used to be a bad guy. I mean, Magneto, and I really enjoy at the end of this episode where there's the whole monologue about touch and connection, and one of the last things we see is Magneto using his ability to be able to touch Rogue. And it's like, well, we all know that's her weakness. She just wants to be touched because she can't be without killing someone. And like, I don't know, I thought it was so beautifully done.
Yeah. That's where this in episode 2 is where, like I said, the trial of Magneto, the epilogue that happens, Storm losing her powers and everything like that. And also, by the way, let's not glance over. Well, I would say that's where like it almost felt like more adult-oriented writing that was there because we're building up all this the love triangle and stuff like that in a previous relationship. Before this, while the whole trial of Magneto is going on, and half the team is protecting Magneto in the court, Jean goes into labor. And
Yes, that's right.
and Rogue basically has to go ahead and fly Scott to the hospital, where, by the way, the doctor refuses to help a mutant patient, refusing services for. Rogue goes ahead and touches the doctor and it takes all his ability. She delivers the baby. She gets all his medical school training in that as the one who delivers the baby, and of course they name him Nathan Charles Summers, who is Cable.
Yeah, but X-Men has gotten so woke, right?
Yes, it's only a new thing that a doctor.
It's only a new
that.
thing. And addressing issues that no longer exist, right? Like segregation. Oh my God. No,
it's not.
But I do think it's super cool that we see. No, but I think it's super cool we get to see the birth of Cable, though. That is cool.
Yes, that is a big thing there. Rick, I know you had some comments about Magneto's new costume that you were not a fan of.
Oh, he put a letter on his costume. Like, what are we doing? Like, let's put an M for Magnus. Or I don't know.
Well,
it's silly. I'm not a fan of it. I know it's an iconic one because some iconic stuff happened while he was wearing it. But as far as character design goes, the red helmet's way cooler than the purple M uniform.
I like it. I'm going to be honest. I do like this version. I don't mind when they change up the costumes here and there. I'm sure he'll be back in his classic suit at some point.
Yeah.
My guess
is... You guys, we breezed through 2 episodes, and nobody says anything about Gambit being a Japanese animation character now. Everybody else is still in the X-Men series. Gambit all of a sudden is turned into like a Dragon Ball Z character.
Oh, would you stop? They enlisted
the hair,
one of the top
out like
they enlisted one of the top Japanese animators.
Let's talk about he's been transformed to a whole other character.
Oh, stop. He's just wearing fucking clothes, and he's still wearing the same suit as he always does.
His hair was changed also.
Oh, Gambit changed his. So did Storm. You didn't mention anything about her mohawk now.
Storm just got a haircut. Gambit
Hey,
changed. Gambit is like biracial now. He's like changed so much.
Stop the madness, my friend.
why did they cut Bishop's hair? That's my question.
That's true, but
Why
hold
did they
on.
cut Bishop's hair?
Bishop doesn't have the business in the front, party in the back, thing.
No,
situation going on
he's
here.
just very short business up here.
He's
No
got Rick's
party-
haircut.
Very short.
He's got Rick's haircut now. That's what Bishop's rocking. What you talking about, man?
He's just got the little fro now.
That's it. It's just fine. It's all good.
Who
Come on,
greenlit
man.
this character design?
All right. Anything else we got to touch upon with X-Men 97 before we wrap this thing up?
I think the most impressive thing with this series is that they're focusing on the character development of the oldest character on the show. It's like the old man who's changing and learning. And I think that's impressive. Normally it's a young character that's got to learn, how to like change and be part of the team and be a good guy and be this and that. Mm-hmm. And now we have the oldest character on the show learning, an old dog learning new tricks. I think that's an interesting angle to take.
Yeah, and he's doing this to try to honor his fallen best friend's, memory, right? Like that was his last thing he wanted them to do, and he's trying to not murder anyone. He's not trying to like do any of that. But we'll see. I mean, we know that I would be surprised if Magneto by the end of this season is still the leader of the X-Men. But as far as they can keep it going, I mean, that does make it pretty interesting and some spicy stuff going on here.
Absolutely. And again, he's led the X-Men before, both in proper canon and in, like alternate universes. So I think it's cool for him to do it as long as they're going to do it. I personally think Professor X is going to come back eventually.
Yes.
Clearly, I think maybe we'll get the Onslaught storyline, right? Because
I can see that.
Is it that like he was dead or they thought he was dead around that time? And, but until that happens, I think it's cool that they're really playing around with, Professor X. Magneto is someone we stand against, but can stand with, and also can lead us and search for redemption. I think it's a really cool use of the character and exploration of the character through the cartoon.
So the ending of episode 2, before I almost slipped my mind for a second, we get another person showing up as Jean Grey at the door as Morph answers the door. And that was the end of the episode. Any suspicions on what the hell is going on right now?
Time travel.
You're throwing out time travel?
That's what I'm throwing out. I might be wrong, but like we got Cable. We know who Cable is if we read a comic book. They're having Cable. Time travel.
Okay. Not Mystique playing games or something like that? And maybe she was...
No, I
okay.
I didn't think that at all. And I could be wrong, but when I watched this, when I finished this today, time travel. I didn't even think about Mystique. What about you?
I think I can get on board with the time travel thing. My question, though, is which Jean is the real one? The one who birthed Cable or at the door? I'm going to say, for the sake of how I feel like this series has started, that we're going to find out that the one who gave birth is not actually Jean. Or at least the Jean of this time is the Jean of another time or something like that. I think they're both Jean Grey. I don't think anyone's like an imposter per se. Okay. Right? It kind of feels like that's where they would go with this type of thing, the way this has been.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree. Like they're both Jean Grey. I did not get the sense that one was a fake, but I think you're right. It's going to be about, well, which Jean Grey and where do they belong? And okay, well, is this the Jean Grey that belongs here? And I think, yeah, it's going to get complicated, but I dig it. I'm in for it. I'm locked in.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I think Rick may have been sent to the Phantom Zone by the end of that. I don't know what happened with him there, but
I think so.
That very much wraps it up for us tonight. Thank you for joining us as always. We always appreciate the support. If you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, be sure to check out Granny's Peach Tea's Facebook group, where we have a lot of cool stuff and trailers. Even a trailer we didn't get a chance to tonight. We'll save that next week because there was a trailer for the Penguin.
Oh, yes.
That dropped earlier. We'll talk about that next week. We just had a lot of shit to get to tonight, so I didn't want to keep on going on with it. But check us out there. Check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com, because that's what we are presented by. Check us on YouTube. Subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. Check out our show, past episodes, future episodes, and all the other stuff that's on the network. Check out X, because that's where you can also find us as well. And on Spotify or wherever you found your audio-only podcast. Jason and I will be back next week. We'll be concluding our X-Men animated series rewatch because we got season 5.
That's right.
Which is 13 episodes. So that'll be a little bit of a lesser week for us. We'll have episode 3 of X-Men 97 and episode 7 of Invincible to talk about. So check us out next week and talk to you later. Peace.
Later.